the tools are not willing, they will be.
Focus your attention. What do you see?
Animals. Fighting. Ship. Sinking. River. Rushing.
What is your purpose?
Mother.
Cronos: The New Dawn, a survival horror game made by the developers of the amazing Silent Hill 2 remake, Bloober Team, and this has been a game that I've been hotly anticipating for a good while now. And man, this game did not disappoint from the opening at all. The opening is mysterious and fills us with so many questions already, with some being answered throughout the game and others not.
Listen to the will of those who will not speak, and if the tools are not willing, they will be.
The game itself opens with a couple of lines which are of great importance. Listen to the will of those who will not speak, and if the tools are not willing, they will be. It implies a world guided by silent forces, whether the dead, history, or fate itself, where resistance doesn't matter because anything unwilling will eventually be bent to destiny's will. But what is that destiny? Well, let us find out together. We then cut to a funny looking astronaut in a chair, seemingly having flashbacks to some events and people which we do not recognize quite just yet. But then a voice calls out to us.
Alert.
A system calls out to us. But also, if you have subtitles on, you'll notice one of these is labelled woman, telling us that there is another voice here as well, which we aren't meant to know about. But in this machine, we are then put through the Lazarus protocol, and we learn what we are and who we are.
Welcome, Traveler ND3576.
We are a traveller, designated ND3576, and we have been awakened due to our predecessor having ceased functioning, and we need to find them. But first we have to do a standard cognitive test, or a Rorschach test, with our answers, spoiler alert, not mattering at all. I did go through this game multiple times in this test specifically to see if there's any different outcomes. I couldn't seem to get one to proc a different ending for this test, so it doesn't really matter. But it does immediately tell us that this game is going to be an extremely psychological experience with a lot of in-the-head moments going on. But the words spoken might hint at something much deeper. Mother, father, child, society, conflict, something that never ends, eternity, and
Dark.
just remember these key words as we're passing through this game. With us passing our test, we join the vocation and are given the task to find ND3500. And to help us on this quest, we are gifted a relic.
The collective grants you with this relic. It is a ship plate EPH-611. May it serve you all three.
Or in survival horror terms, the basic starting pistol, but it can transform into brass knuckles, a switchblade if you will, allowing us to punch things. But we now need to exit this pod, but slight problem. It gets stuck. And this simple fact hints that something is wrong about the vocation. They might not be what they used to be. This futuristic technology and equipment is failing. They haven't been maintained as well, telling us that the vocation might not be as influential as they once were. But this then allows us to be taught how to use our gun with a basic shooting tutorial with obviously pressing trigger or left click, you shoot, but also the game introduces that all weapons have a secondary function, with the pistol here having a charged up shot, allowing us to actually break open the locks on the door. Once breaking the door, this then allows us into the outside world.
Estimating the fallen predecessor's last known location. Commencing search.
and we locate where our predecessor went offline, and we start to head there, beginning our hunt. Now, the first thing I need to mention about this game is something that it does very bad. It's an Unreal Engine 5 game, and if you don't know, all Unreal Engine 5 games recently have had this same fucking issue, the Unreal Engine 5 stutter. It's really stuttery, man. Which is really, really bad for this game. This game was unplayable for me when I launched it, and I have a really good computer. So I needed to spend 20 minutes finding and fixing this game so the Unreal Engine 5 stutter didn't keep happening. I will link the fix that I had used in the description, so if you guys have the same issue, you can fix the game for yourself. But also, this is getting ridiculous now. I don't know if it's on the part of the developers or Epic with Unreal Engine and they need to just fix this fucking stutter, but it seems so many games suffer from this, and this was such a sad thing to see that Bloober again fail at PC optimization after the fucking debacle that was the Silent Hill 2 remake. Like, man, developers just need to get PC ports right. I don't understand how they're getting worse as time goes on. I get it, games are more demanding now, but optimizing games should be easier now with how many tools there are to use now to optimize games easily, like frame generation and AI upscaling, but they just seem to be getting worse somehow, which is really odd to me. But this game runs really poorly on PC for most people, so if you do get this game on PC, make sure you use one of these fixes that the community have already made, because again, it's an engine problem now. These are the same fixes that people have been using for all games previously, and they're just basically using the same fix for this game, which then immediately fixes it, which then begs the question, why don't the developers just do this? Well, it's because they don't really understand how to use Unreal Engine 5 yet still, even though it's been out for years now, but I digress. Almost immediately, what I was blown away by was three key aspects. One, the visuals and atmosphere alongside those visuals absolutely makes this game stand out. This game oozes its style and horror. Bloober took what they learned from the Silent Hill 2 remake and fucking ran with it. And while yes, the game does take inspiration from Dead Space by the way it lays out its environments and uses it to tell a story, but also the way it presents the environment and the horror it presents to you is more along the lines of Silent Hill as well. The second thing that I was blown away by the most was the voice performance by the Traveler by Kelly Burke, being an actual standout character to me, with her performance displaying the change in the character throughout the game, and to me her performance only gets better as the game goes on. And finally, the soundtrack by Arkadiusz Rakowski, which, man, the soundtrack fits this game so well with the setting and the theme, and it just is really good, genuinely. But exploring the environment, you might start to question where we are. And it's very clear we're in a Cold War era Soviet country, and spoiler alert, it's set in Poland. And I don't know how to explain it, but the soundtrack just fits this area so well to me for some reason. But very quickly we can find a structure that doesn't fit with the rest of the area, a gate of some sort. And on the right side of the gate, a government announcement, an announcement which tells the citizens to not leave their homes, and that any alarming symptoms or behaviors from the neighbors should be reported. The authorities have placed a lockdown on the city or country, with the government turning the people on each other, asking them to report thy neighbor. The lockdown, of course, will give most people flashbacks to 2020 and the lockdown that we all went through, unless you're from New Zealand, and that is definitely what this game's playing into, that sort of memory that most people have, and it's a really interesting game for that, and I found it fascinating to see this game play into what actually happened and pull real life events into this game to make it more realistic. But anyway, inside the building you'll notice writing on the wall, and if you're like me and you can't read it because you don't speak Polish, you're in luck. Looking at the text for long enough, the game will translate the text for you. This is a really, and I mean really, cool feature, and I hope that more developers actually use this feature in the future, because it is such a simple thing, but it makes the game's world more realistic. The amount of games that are set in foreign countries that have English writing on menus, signs, on the walls, everything kind of pulls you out. It all being in Polish, it actually makes the world feel more alive and actually feels more real. It's such a simple thing to do, but it elevates the world so much more. And another note here talks about people having to be resourceful and to save resources due to them being extremely limited, which was definitely common during the 80s and especially in a Soviet country, because communism unfortunately doesn't work. But also during a lockdown when resources would become very, very sort of scarce. But within this apartment building, we can find loads of diary entries from people talking about the lockdown from from their perspective as it occurred, which seemingly it occurred around Christmas time on the 12th month of the year, with a very strong military presence being in place, which means the country or city was most likely in martial law, a very different kind of lockdown that we experienced in recent years. But you might ask, what caused this lockdown? Well, heading down a bit into the lower floors, we get our first glimpse of what could have caused the lockdown, with a massive pile of flesh spread throughout the building. And in the next room, a message from one of our predecessors, with this funny looking cassette player.
Passage to Sector D31 established. The perimeter seems safe. The port in this safe house is now active, using the fuses from another device upstairs. There was an emitter relic left in the base. By the will of the collective, I claimed it to aid the vocation. To my successors, if you need any more resources, you can use the surplus. The code is 367.
367.
Moving out to C31. Such is our calling.
This message gives us the code for the door, but these are scattered about the world and sort of tell us what the predecessors were doing and their thoughts on what was happening, which again is such an interesting way to bring in another perspective to the world and explain some questions that we might be having. But with the code, we can now open this door and reach Sector C31, and through the door, a fun bit of government messaging about living in a society which lacks resources, trying to make it sound not that bad using products well after expiration date and using a tea bag 6 times. Fuck me, I could not do that. But this just paints such a clear picture of the state of what people were living through. Whatever happened really pushed the people here to their absolute limit, most likely with food and water very quickly running out. But with us needing to find an electrical fuse to open the door, we can find it here, and we meet Cronos' main enemy types, the Orphans. And man, this game's combat, to me, feels very fun to play. I've noticed many other reviewers and many other people complain about the game's combat, and I personally think they just don't get it. So first of all, let's go over what you're meant to aim for in this game. At first, I thought it was limbs. I thought it would be like Dead Space. It's not. It's more RE. But if you shoot an enemy in a limb, like the arm or the leg, it does something a little bit different. It can stun them or trip them up if you hit them hard enough in it. So if you use your charge shot on the leg, there's a potential that you might trip the enemy up, allowing you to then distance yourself and fall back to then line up a headshot when they get back up. But not only that, is if you shoot an enemy enough times in the head, they might just get stunned anyway, and I think this is a part that people did not rely on enough. Cronos doesn't have a dodge feature. You don't have a dodge roll or a parry or anything like that akin to something in Silent Hill 2 Remake or Dead Space or the RE remakes now with the parries. It is so important that you keep your distance from enemies and make sure that you hit your shots in the head or limbs with charge shots to stun them. But that to me is so purposeful and it feels so unique and more engaging. I understand the frustration. People want to run up to an enemy, shoot them 4 times in the head and drop them. But the game doesn't want you to do that. It wants you to take your time. It wants you to feel scared of what the enemies can do to you. And that feels more fun to me. Cronos' combat just feels heavy and weighty. Every bullet you have feels so impactful and so important. And combine that with the fact ammo is extremely rare in this game, rarer than most survival horror games have their ammo at, which again is another complaint people have saying they never have enough ammo. To me, it makes the game so much more engaging and it encourages me to really understand and master how to use the weapons and understand how they sway. The game makes it as difficult as possible to shoot enemies in the head. The way they move, the way the guns sway, the recoil, everything is working against you to prevent you from landing headshots. But that's the key point. The game wants it to be difficult, and I like that so much. Yes, the combat is not groundbreaking by any means. This game doesn't do anything more insane than Resident Evil 4, which is like the godfather and the granddaddy of third-person shooter mechanics. It's nowhere near as complex and interesting as something like Dead Space, but it doesn't need to. The game feels purposeful in that manner that it wants you to sit there and really try distance yourself from the enemies. It wants you to feel scared of getting close to them, because once you can get up close and personal with a knife and just parry all the attacks of a simple button press, enemies lose their scary factor, and that's a problem I've had with a lot of recent Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 4 Remake specifically is honestly one of the worst for this. Being able to parry the chainsaw guy, while yes, very fucking cool, it makes them not scary, and to me, they're not as intimidating as they were in the original. But Cronos, it demands that you feel intimidated and respect every enemy that you come across, giving them the distance that you need to get your shots off. But ammo amounts. Is this a problem with this game? Well, I never found it a problem. Yes, you do not have enough ammo to willy-nilly blast it all over the place and just dump rounds into Orphans. That sounds funny when I say that, but to me, I never felt like I didn't have enough ammo to deal with the situation at hand. Yes, I wish I had more rifle rounds so I could use the rifles a bit more. I wish I had more arbalest rounds so I could use the arbalest a bit more. But I always found myself having just the right amount of ammo. If I landed all my headshots, or maybe missed one or two, I could still take down every boss I fought, every enemy I came across, and I killed almost every enemy while playing this game. I didn't, skip some Resident Evil style to save ammo. I killed everything, and I still had more than enough bullets to beat this game. To me, this just shows that not only are a lot of players not understanding what this game is going for, but a lot of reviewers as well. Recent survival horror games have made it no secret they are moving more and more away from what made survival horror. Resident Evil 4 Remake, while I love it and I think it is one of the best games for gameplay side of survival horror, is not as focused on the survival aspect of the game. Dead Space again is much more focused on the action than the survival. To me, Cronos' gameplay is not like Dead Space or the Silent Hill 2 Remake or Resident Evil 4 or the RE2 Remake. To me, it embodies and goes back to the original great survival horror game, Resident Evil 1. The limited inventory space reminds me so much of RE1's 8-slot capacity, or 6 if you played as Chris. The limited ammo you got, the stiff combat, and the respect the enemies demanded of you and having to distance yourself to ensure that you can deal with them effectively. This is what Cronos is trying to emulate. Not Dead Space, not RE4R, not RE2R, and especially not the Silent Hill 2 Remake. It is trying to go back to the roots of the survival horror genre and pay homage to that. Cronos isn't just a Dead Space clone. It is the sum of the three kings of the genre: Dead Space, Silent Hill 2, and Resident Evil 1. It takes all three of their best aspects and combines them into what I believe is one of the most full and pure survival horror games. Not action horror, not action survival horror, but a pure through and through survival horror game. And to me, someone who loves survival horror games, this is like the A-class fucking Michelin star steak that you can have. Well, yes, it is not for everyone. Not everyone likes steak. Some people find it too chewy. But for me, this is a masterclass in designing a survival horror game that makes us respect the enemies and feel fear whenever you see them. That is what survival horror is truly about. Not action, not shooting things till they die, but having respect for the enemies and feeling fear at the most basic of them. And that is what makes Cronos' combat, to me, so good. Yes, it's simple, but it's effective. But this spiky boy here, he is the basic normal shambler zombie enemy type, and there's not really much interesting about him. You put 4 rounds in his head, he'll drop to the floor. But obviously it's just introducing you to the combat, how enemies move, how they sort of attack you, and how you need to sort of distance yourself and make sure that you have enough space between you and them to make sure that you don't die. But killing him and moving along, we can now exit the building and hey look, a little friend. And following the little friend, we find a massive piece of biomass, the amalgamation of the flesh itself. And you might question, what even is the biomass? Why is it here and what made it? Well, we don't know that answer quite just yet, but we will find that out very soon. But first, we can find another message.
To those who were sent here after me, if you have been tasked with finding a target that is located in A0 or any sector in the vicinity of the Unity Hospital, you will fall. I am cutting off the path. The chances of traversing it are close to 0. Resources are scarce. Evaluate whether you can be of use to the vocation in other ways. Sus Such is our calling.
So the Unity Hospital seems to be extremely dangerous, which we can potentially guess is ground zero of whatever the flesh is, or where it originated from potentially, as it's called C0, so maybe it's Area 0. And continuing on, we meet another basic boy. Just simple enemy, nothing too insane, but you might notice something when you kill it. Something wraps around its body, engulfing it. And to me, I thought this was, oh, it's like Dead Space. If I stomp on them, they'll drop an item. But no, nothing happens, but this is telling us something. And another message just beyond this from another predecessor mentions that the Orphans grow stronger as they merge, and that efficient discipline, attacking them quickly, is the best way to prevent them from merging and ensure your success. So maybe this is telling us that we need to eliminate the Orphans before they can merge and become too strong. So this is this is going against what many Resident Evil fans, especially of the RE2 remake or the RE1 remake, might do, where they shoot an enemy once in the head and then run past them because they're stunned, and that is often the best way to deal with enemies in old Resident Evil games. But here it's directly telling us that no, you probably will want to get rid of every enemy you see, because if they merge and become stronger, it might take up more resources to deal with them. And exploring this shop, we eventually find the key that we need, and we get to see what happens when an orphan merges with another. The dead orphan on the floor is then absorbed by this alive orphan, and the alive orphan, which was just the basic, bland, normal boy, turns into the spiky boy, displays a hierarchy to us. So when an orphan merges, not only do they become more tanky, they also deal a hell of a lot more damage, which is obviously, you know, because of the spikes. And this is such a cool feature to me. I love this simple thing. The merging really does encourage you to not fall back and be scared. If you're scared and run away from enemies and you've killed one, they might merge with another and get too strong. At one point in this game, I let an enemy merge 5 times and they basically were invincible. I honestly couldn't do any damage to them, and I just had to let them kill me because I'd made them too strong, becoming what was basically misdirects of this game. But you can avoid them as best as possible. But I love this simple thing. It makes the game stand out so much, and I really hope they go even further with this feature in the sequel and really expand upon it. The merging is so cool to me and makes the combat even more engaging as well, because it means that you need to keep an eye on every enemy that you know is on the field to ensure that they don't just wander off, merge a few times, and then come back as like God. And it's so cool. I love it, and it is a highlight to me for sure. But past this foul thing, once we've dealt with it with a few extra bullets, we can find a cute thing, a kitty. The main collectible of Cronos. No, I am not kidding. Finding and petting any cat that you find across the land, they will not only reward you with a very powerful item, normally a core, but occasionally certain bullets, crafting materials, you name it, you get it. But also you unlock the cat in a specific location that we'll come to later in the game, so you can pet them again. Also, you get that entry in the database, which is honestly so cool. I love this. But yes, the cats are the main collectible of this game, which is honestly a pretty good collectible, I can't even lie. But past the cat, we will come to a very large gate that denies us access due to us lacking an essence. What is an essence? Well, we don't know that quite just yet, but the traveler mentions that there is a terminal on the other side that we need to reach. So to access it, we need to find an essence. But to the side of this gate, we can find another gate. And inside of that gate, we can find Cronos' version of the safe room. And man, let's get into it. I fucking, and I mean fucking, love the upgrade system that is implemented in Cronos. It's simple, but works so well. My only complaint would be to do what the Dead Space system had with the branching paths, and it would be like perfect. But what makes it so great? So Cronos obviously uses Dead Space's system of upgrading your gear, upgrading your weapons with materials, and upgrading your suit, armor, and other equipment with materials as well. But what makes Cronos a bit better is it does exactly what I stated that Dead Space 3 should have done to improve the upgrade system. Instead of having one singular currency, either be it the energy, which is the currency from Dead Space 3, or the cores, which are nodes from Dead Space 1 and 2, it has 2. And the way that these are split encourages upgrades so much more. So, The cores are the nodes, obviously, and nodes, the biggest problem to me was that certain upgrades weren't as valuable as others. Investing nodes into certain paths just was not as worthwhile as investing nodes into other paths. It felt like sometimes you would waste nodes to get certain upgrades. But in Cronos, every upgrade feels so useful, especially on your suit. Inventory space, health, and resource capacity. While resource capacity doesn't seem as important, it allows you to carry more resources and therefore craft more items on the go, which is such a useful thing, especially when inventory space is limited. Trust me, you can basically never have healing items on you, but as long as you have the ability to craft them, you can quickly craft them and inject yourself, healing yourself fully without ever needing to take up a slot in your inventory. It allows you to manage the inventory so much better if you can carry more resources. Inventory space, obviously, you get more inventory space. And health is a great little bonus that you might need if enemies are beating you up a little too hard. But all these upgrades are obtained by using nodes, or the cores. And as you upgrade each little tree, the amount of cores needed to upgrade it to the next level will slowly increase, which encourages you to then upgrade the other trees in order. Obviously, you can save like I did to max inventory out immediately, but the game subtly encourages you, well, I could either get one more inventory space or I could get more health and more resource capacity for the same price. It's a great way to encourage you to do all the upgrades without feeling like, oh, it's too much of a waste because it's the same price as getting this upgrade. Great system. But then the problem with Dead Space 1 was the nodes were the only system. If you had a node, you would then use that node to either upgrade your suit or your guns. And that caused the problem. You either got more survivability or you could deal more damage. And it kind of meant that you choose one or the other. So for me in Dead Space, I always upgraded the plasma cutter first. Every time I played Dead Space 1, I always invest a lot into the plasma cutter immediately. And it kind of meant that my suit upgrades lacked quite a bit. Yes, you get a lot of nodes, but you kind of get my problem. It kind of feels like you're, okay, I'm going to upgrade this thing first, then this thing. It doesn't feel like you can upgrade two things at once and get the same effect. But Cronos, with the energy or the credit system from Dead Space 3, has that just for guns, and I love it. So each upgrade for a gun is priced differently, of course, as each of them are different value, damage being the most expensive one, but the most impactful to what you do, your damage. And the way these are priced is actually great because it means that the less useful upgrades like reload speed are actually now more useful because they don't feel as, let's say, wasteful if you pay for them. And I like that. It's simple, but it's such a great way to make sure that you don't ever feel like what you're getting out of the upgrade is not worth it. The increased stability and reload speed is so useful and they're so cheap that it feels like a no-brainer to pick them up. And while damage, yes, is always a no-brainer, I actually debated at times whether I should get more damage or make the gun easier to control and faster to reload so I could deal more damage per second, not per shot, but be able to put more rounds out quickly. Again, the only way I would improve this entire system is just bring back the fun graphs that were in Dead Space 1 and 2 that you had the different upgrade paths on. And you've got an instant fucking perfect upgrade system to be there. Like genuinely, I can't think of a way to improve this system anyway. Just bring back them graphs and make them, you know, well laid out and boom, instant cinema, instant perfection. You've got the best upgrade system in all of survival horror. And I mean that. But anyway, enough of me glazing the fucking upgrade system. In the safe room, we can also, of course, engage with a shop where we can buy some items, mainly healing and ammo, but also we can store some bits in our stash, which very useful. And you'll very quickly come to rely on the stash very soon. And of course, we can grab our very first core, which will then allow you to grab your very first upgrade for either your suit or your torch. But also in here, we can find another message talking about how to destroy the Orphans fully, in which they recommend using fire, and the torch is the best tool for that job. And a little bit later, interacting with this dispenser, we can get a torch fuel. Yes, we already had the torch on us at all times, and the torch is an extremely useful tool that we have access to, not only allowing us to burn specific pieces of biomass, allowing us to enter secret rooms, acting as the node rooms from Dead Space 1 and 2, and these rooms often hide very useful items and resources, but also the torch can act as a shiv, basically, from The Last of Us. If you get grabbed by an enemy, enemy, you can instantly escape from them without having to mash out, which is a great item to have and can save you at times. Also, when an enemy is set on fire by the torch, it stuns them and temporarily immobilizes them for a bit as they take damage from the fire. Well, it is simple, definitely, and I think it needed a bit more work to it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, you know, basic, and it does add a little bit of sort of complexity to the combat because you can, if you get stuck in a corner and you need to get out, you can just deploy the torch and run out. So a lot of the people saying like, oh, there's no dodge, so I get stuck in a corner and die. You have equipment to get out of corners, and you should never really let an enemy push you back into a corner. You have one get out of jail free card, and you can upgrade it to get 2 if you really need it. But honestly, this game gives you more than enough tools to not get sort of pushed around and bullied by the enemies. You have enough stuff to stun them and push them back that if you're getting killed and pushed back by enemies, you're just bad at the game. I hate to say that, but enough of me, I guess, making fun of people who can't play the game, moaning online. In here, we can also find some notes scattered about which just outline the general life in the area, with some mentioning a man being hired for a shop due to him being a little bit loco and going crazy at home. But finding the key, we can enter a shop and find a note on public gatherings being banned, and we can also open this gate. But more importantly, we can find an audio log.
Can the citizen confirm that her name is Veronica Kaminsky, born 1948?
Dr. Veronica Kaminsky. What is this? Why am I here? Am I being arrested?
Doctor, you are here because the situation at the Steelworks has changed. We have come into possession of a certain asset.
Asset?
So it seems the military have obtained something at the Steelworks, and a Dr. Veronica now has been asked to examine the subject, indicating it being potentially something biological, maybe being the discovery of the flesh itself. But it gives us a question about what is happening at the Steelworks. But we can't get any answers here, so let us continue on. And heading up these stairs, we see something that defies the laws of physics. And title card. Yes, all of that was just the tutorial and opening. And man, it might be one of the best openings I've experienced in a good while in a modern game. The way it just sort of sets the stage for us and the state of the world, which clearly the world isn't doing too hot with it being completely destroyed, because man, that is a big hole there. It just does a great job at setting the stage and just telling us these stories and sort of bringing you into the world, and I love it so much. Now, immediately outside, we can find some notes on the floor which talk about the church, and that the only way people can survive the outbreak of the disease is to join said church. This tells us that society has completely collapsed and that religious insanity is sort of spreading throughout the populace because they are so desperate and they see the end is coming that they're all basically converting because they want to believe that they can be saved in some way. They are basically losing all hope from their governments and everything, so they're turning to God now. But also, if we turn around, we can see a massive statue which is a monument to the Steelworks and probably the people that designed it. But on these statues we can see some writing with 2 phrases: release the steelworkers, telling us that steelworkers have been forced to stay somewhere and are trapped somewhere, and the babble of the party isn't information, which basically means that what the government says isn't true, which that's always true no matter the country, especially my country and the one across the pond. But the Steelworks has been mentioned twice now, first in that audio log and now here, so it is clearly of high importance. Also, another note talks about the lockdowns which was placed on the city, with the West trying to get involved to lift it. They were trying to help them, but the government at the time, which was during the height of the Cold War, was too stubborn to accept the help from the West, as they believed it would mean that they were failures, because, you know, Soviet pride and the communism versus capitalism debate. And after a little bit of conflict, we find our next bit of kit, the emitter.
Relic module found. An emitter. It can be used to manipulate the oddities.
A piece of technology which will allow us to tune into the anomaly, the thing that defies the laws of physics itself. And with it, we can finally get access to our objective, our predecessor.
ND3500 reached. The anchor is intact. Well done. Accessing predecessor's travel log. Attempting data salvage. Target seeded. The predecessor was on a search for a target called Edvard Wisniewski. Calculating coordinates. Confirmed dive location in D3. The nearby housing project. You never reached him. I will carry on where you left off. The location continues.
So now we have to continue ND3500's mission, a mission to find Edward, who now is our target to extract. Extract from what? Probably the world, and save him. Moving forward, we can find another message.
Invented writing to communicate across time. Of course, I have no one to communicate with. I'm the last. So this is the only way I can overcome the debilitating effects of time. I can save my thoughts, send them to myself. In the future, shield them from oblivion.
This message seems different. It isn't focused on the vocation, but on a predecessor and then reflecting on their memories and the human form of diary keeping, to keep those memories so they never forget them. Something he has been struggling with. The long time that has passed that he's been there tells us that whatever we are, we can keep going for significantly longer than humans, so long in fact that we start to forget things and our memory starts to become clouded, adding more mystery to what we actually are. And in the next room, we can find a history on the New Dawn. New Dawn is the city we are in, a city which was focused on building the ideal communist city of tomorrow, with a focus on togetherness, all culminating in the Steelworks being the beating heart of the city. I love this game so much because, man, this is a masterclass in world building and just how you design a world and show what the world was about. And in another note, it mentions about an underground train system which was the best in the world, which, I mean, you haven't got that much competition out there. Your main competition is the fucking London Underground, and that's a shithole. But it just sets up so many of these locations which are mentioned that we think about and then ask questions about. And of course, we will visit many of these locations later, but it just builds up the world so nicely and it makes you want to explore more and more. But anyway, in a pharmacy, we can find a note from a pharmacist stating that they have run out of supplies and now telling an Olivia to go to the hospital and beg the military for help, telling us that even in the lockdown now, the military have stopped helping the regular people. They have stepped back and are probably just securing specific locations, probably the steelworks and the hospital, but they're not going out and helping the regular people, like giving supplies to the pharmacist here so she can give out medicine. And I hate to say this, and I don't want to get political with this video, but this simple note reminds me a lot of an event that happened in my country, when good old Boris Johnson during lockdown gave his amazing speech telling the British public that when lockdowns first happened, that
more families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time.
I remember this so clearly, watching this, and when schools were still open, the main place the virus was spreading, and that pit of despair I felt was actually crazy. Seeing the people that run your country and run, basically are in charge of my life were this incompetent at responding to a threat was terrifying. Even now, with me obviously now having a condition and I am immunocompromised, like badly, if another virus like that were to happen, I would be in a lot of danger. So much so, it could actually very easily kill me. And if it were to happen again, I know that I wouldn't trust the government now. Obviously, I would take my vaccines and do all this stuff to make sure that I can stay healthy. But if they were like, well, no, we're not going to lock down, but I would take my own initiative. I would choose for myself what I believe I need to do, because I know what the government is. They're not fast to responding to actual threats, and at times they're just completely tone deaf. And we can see that here in this game as well. And yeah, I can imagine something like this happening in real life, where the government just stop helping. They don't go out of their way to help people. They'll let old people die in care homes and not see their family because they don't care. It's crazy though to think that the forbidden virus was 5 years ago. God, I'm going to be 22 this year. Jesus, I'm getting old. Anywho, less about me grappling with my mortality. Here is another note which tells us that full martial law was in effect. And for those that don't know what martial law is, basically it means the military come in and take control of the city, country, whatever. And this means that if you were seen outside by the military, you would most likely either be arrested, military arrested, which is a bit worse, or shot if you resist, which, yeah, shows you how severe this was. This was something that was actually a conversation, I remember, in the UK, whether we would go into martial law, because there was a fear that people wouldn't listen about the lockdown and wouldn't follow the government's instructions. Of course, the government themselves didn't follow their own instructions, but fortunately people were good and they did follow lockdown. And I think a lot of people were happy for lockdown because, hey, some people got time off school. I didn't do my exams. That was fun. But yeah, this was a conversation that was actually had here in the UK. I remember it very clearly about if martial law would be a thing. Fortunately, it wasn't a thing because it wasn't needed. But here it was because people weren't listening. And it tells us that whatever the flesh is highly infectious and spreadable, and that the church itself is a breeding ground for the sickness, telling us that everywhere is completely infected. And the church is almost symbolic in it being infected, because often religion is the last bastion of hope that people have. For that to then be corrupted and, infected kind of shows that the last hope and last layer of defense that people have is completely gone. It's rotted from the inside, which, is kind of cool, and it's cool sort of symbolism there, and I like that. And after some puzzles, we enter some apartment buildings, which have been labeled a Class 1 outbreak, which tells us that this potentially is maybe sort of an early area where the outbreak sort of started in this area. To help us with this higher threat, we can now grab another relic.
Relic module found. The hammer. It will help gain an advantage in close quarters.
Ooh, S tier. This is the best gun in the game, acting the exact same as the starter pistol with a simple and charged shot, but it's way stronger, and it's a shotgun. Anyway, heading through the apartment building, we can eventually reach the point we are searching for.
Dive point in sight.
I bet that will be a bitch to fix with the landlord.
The building is heavily affected by the anomaly.
But making our way through it, and the many orphans in the building, we eventually escape the building and finding a sort of park area. And I really like this area. I don't know why. I think it's because it kind of reminds me of where I grew up back in London for some reason. But here we can also find a note about what was banned during the lockdown, which displays the heavy hand of the government that were employed during the outbreak. It's not things like, oh, you can't go to events. It's simple things, loud music, or just things that don't seem to matter, but I think kind of shows that they were trying to control people as much as possible. But now I want to highlight one of my favorite pieces of environmental storytelling in this game. So in one of the flats, we can find a police report on a table, with them talking about them responding to a disturbance or a report of a haunting of the building. Now, later in the game, when you return to this area and open a certain door, we get to see the thing that was haunting the building. It was obviously an orphan that was one of the early outbreaks. Someone was sick and they were screaming in pain, and, people couldn't find them because they were basically trapped in their apartment. But it's such a cool use of environmental storytelling, and I think this is something they took very much from Dead Space. Dead Space and Dead Space 2 specifically, and even a bit of Dead Space 3, one of its biggest strengths is environmental storytelling. It is. Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 1, they're good at it, but Dead Space is a masterclass in using environmental storytelling. And that is what Cronos has taken from Dead Space as well. the way it uses its world to tell smaller stories that aren't super important to understand but add so much to the world. And this is what Cronos does really well as well, is just telling these such small stories that don't matter but are really impactful. There's so many that I'm not going to go through in this video because there's just too many that I would need to go through and talk about. But one of my favorites, of course, is this one, but there's also another one about a father who had to be isolated from his children and his wife, and his children stopped coming to see him through the door, and it's implied that they were killed somehow. And it's amazing, and it's fucking cinema. I genuinely encourage you, if you play this game, to really take your time with it. Read everything, look at everything, explore as much as possible, because it makes the world feel so much more alive and so much more, I guess, lived in as well. But we need to get back to our main objective, and that is the search of Edward, and we can find a note telling us that he lived in flat number 48. Now, in Cronos, just like Silent Hill 2 or the Resident Evil games, it is split into sections which are all focused on a very specific area, in which we move through the world to reach these areas, and the apartments are the first area we will spend an extended amount of time in, and I really like the apartments. While a simple environment that is done multiple times before this, Silent Hill 2 famously has an apartments area, but to me it allows the world to really build itself up within it and tell a much more grounded story about the outbreak from the perspective of the people, just regular people, not the military, not the scientists, just people and what they saw and what they felt during it all. I think also the reason I like a simple apartment sort of for horror, because one of my favorite horror films of all time is Wreck, which is a Spanish zombie film, but the way it uses the apartment building is done so well, and how it makes that claustrophobic feeling. And I think that's why I always like apartment buildings in horror stuff, mainly because I love that film a lot. It's not my favorite film of all time, but it's a great film. Watch that. It's a great zombie film. But also I love it when horror games take a really normal environment like an apartment building or a school or a supermarket and they turn it into a nightmare version of itself. It just creates a great environment that when you're out and about in your daily life, you'll see, say, a supermarket and you'll go, hey, that game was like that. Imagine that was in real life. And you kind of feel that fear again, that sort of uneasiness that you're like, wow, this could be real if it actually happened. I just like it. This is me nerding out again. I'm such a fucking nerd. But through this, we can find a bunch of notes from a person called A, just A, talking about wanting to leave New Dawn. And as we can explore, we can start to hear something speak. Asking where someone is, specifically a she. And another note from this A talks about Edward specifically, with people avoiding him, telling us that he has changed from who he once was, seemingly being plagued by something filling his thoughts and haunting him, turning him absolutely insane. And another note as well tells us how some people took advantage of others during the outbreak and the lockdown, kind of like in real life with people selling hand sanitizer and masks for exorbitant prices. But basically, the people who used to do home renovations found they couldn't do it anymore because they weren't allowed inside the house. But they then offered to board people's homes up for them for a price, of course, showing how people would any way to make money from desperate people, which, hey, what else is new? That is what everyone does nowadays. That is what the government is doing to us right now. I hate to tell you this, the people that you think are for your rights and want to make your life better don't. They want to line their pockets as much as possible. But enough politics. I really need to stop talking about politics. Anyway, let's look at this new enemy that we can find. And the dialogue seems like this place is haunted by something searching for someone. In one of the rooms, we find ourselves an audio log from Veronica.
Funeral's tomorrow. After that, I don't know. I guess I'll take that scholarship David was talking me into. That will be it. Goodbye, New Dawn. I'm off to become an accomplished scientist. Yay. Maybe that's for the better. I mean, maybe that way I can finally help someone. I have never been good at dealing with patients directly. And with anyone, for that matter. Maybe saving lives from my little lab in the hospital is my true destiny. Nobody knows. I don't know if we'll see each other again. Probably not, but if somehow you're listening to this,
Well, Veronica was off to become a scientist, but she doesn't seem too chuffed about it. And yes, we know that she did become a scientist because we heard in an earlier audio log she was asked to by the military to look at something, showing that she became quite important and quite respected in her field. But it does answer that she wasn't a doctor in the terms of like medicine, like she wasn't a, you know, nurse in the hospital or a doctor in the hospital, but she was a scientific doctor. So she was very familiar with probably physics or something else, space maybe, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, we now quickly head back to the park area and into one of the shops searching for a key item, and we now awaken our very next enemy type. The biggest of boys. These are your big tanky lads. They hit hard and they are quite the threat, with you needing to keep as much distance as possible from them. Top tip, shotgun plus with the fire from the torch is the best way to deal with them effectively, as their arms act as a shield, and once you set them on fire they drop their arm, allowing you to shoot them more easily. I think their arm also somehow blocks their head, because I noticed that it gives the kind of the armored effect the game has. Some enemies have armor, and if you shoot them in the armor it kind of just makes a ping noise off of them, which I think means you don't actually do any damage to them. Obviously I don't know the mechanics entirely, but it seems like they get armored from their arm, so dropping their arm by burning them is a good way to do full damage with your weapons. But past the big boy, we can obtain the bolt cutters, which now allows us to open up certain locked doors, and this item right here we will need to keep on us for the rest of the game. No, I'm not joking, the bolt cutters are basically essential, as there is so many doors scattered throughout the game that require them. But anyway, behind our very first door we can find a cat.
Hello, cat.
Yeah, you'll find cats mainly behind them. But heading back to the apartment and heading towards the anomaly, we can find another tape, which tells us that the new enemy here is vulnerable to fire. Yeah, what else is new? But we move through this really cool environment of obviously the world sort of defying the laws of physics, things floating and moving about, but we are confronted by the new foe. And this acts as our first boss fight with the Orphan, which is slightly different from the rest. It literally is just black, like oil black, not, you know, but also it's able to speak to us as well. And this boss fight, I like it. It's simple again, but I like how it uses the environment and now sort of teaches you about environmental things you can shoot, like jerry cans / gas canisters, barrels to blow things up and set things on fire. It very much wants you to learn to use these as much as possible, because ammo again is scarce, and being able to do a lot of damage with one bullet is amazing. So it encourages you to think about your environment and actually look around to see if you can find anything to blow up. But quickly, we kill the boss, and we learn that it's called the Unmerged one, and it also has something to say to us. If it isn't clear by the name, this is a single person or thing that didn't merge with anything. So it's not an orphan that is merged with multiple things, it is a singular being, and seemingly is a person who is alone and is searching for someone. And in the very next room, we find a note from A about Edward, with his mental state degrading significantly. And you might question something. Could that Unmerged one be related to Edward, a man who seemingly kept going to see this A, searching for someone, and maybe at one point he couldn't reach her and went insane? I'm going to give you a spoiler here. The Unmerged one is Edward. The bosses and these black bosses are the essences we are hunting, but they're the essences in the modern day, because we need to go back in time to get them. Cronos, he uses time travel. But why couldn't Edward reach A? Well, maybe it was because she no longer wanted to see him, or he was getting dangerous due to his mental state and she was scared of him. We don't know that, but we will get our answer almost immediately through this time rift, with the help of our anchor. And now we have travelled back to a time before the world fell apart. And here we can find the abode of a man who liked to dive into a lot of the conspiracy theories, with the Steelworks having apparently dug a well to hell. But it also states that the drill that they were using to dig the hole blew up 14 kilometers into the ground, which might explain why the Steelworkers didn't come home. They died, or they got caved in, or they dug up something which could only have come from hell itself. maybe the very things that we've been fighting this entire time. Also, another note talks of an unexplained murder dated in 1954. We are currently in the 80s, if you want to know, more specifically 81, and the man who died mysteriously was first believed to have died of natural causes, but upon further investigation of his body, they found strange marks around his head. And another note talks about people having disappeared every day and a mention of a mysterious unknown disease, with this being the average schizo news about government taking people and telling them lies about the disease, and that the hospital and the temporary medical facility should be avoided. Man, you think they're inspired by real world events and real world people and real world news sources that we had recently for this game's story? Nah, probably not. It's probably all made up, innit? But this tells us that whatever has happened, the government tried their best to keep it under wraps and under control, but of course it got out somehow. In the toilet as well, we can find some great reading about missing hikers, but most importantly, we learn who A is, Angela, and learning her birthday, we can open up this safe, in which inside we can learn about the whereabouts of where Edward is, the shelter. But also we can find another note with dates on it, with the last line saying he would come to observe her on the final date. The date is in 81, and that date most likely is today, the time we are currently in. Who would come to observe? Who knows? Maybe it's talking about us. Maybe Edward somehow knows what is going to happen in his future. But we see the extent of Edward's madness with now seeing his final masterpiece, his wall with everything on it. And he knows a hell of a lot more than most, knowing even about us, the Traveller, and what we look like as he has drawn us. But we haven't met Edward yet, so was it one of our predecessors that met him, or does he just know it all? Was it all revealed to him in a dream, or did he just make it all the fuck up? But maybe this is why Edward is our target. Maybe it's because he knows way too much and he needs to be eliminated because he could throw a wrench in the works of the vocation and cause problems. So maybe that's why we need to get him. So let us head to the shelter. Oh boy, this is where the game starts to get weirdo, with us having all in the head moments. So we start hearing a woman calling out to Edward, and someone talking about a blind woman being sick, but most importantly, we can find a missing persons poster for Angela. So she also went missing like all those other people, like Edward was obsessing over. And you might start to ask the question, did Edward make her disappear? Did he take her? Because, you know, he's obsessing over serial killers and unsolved murders and all this mystery stuff. Did he go insane, take her and kill her? Well, let's find out. Heading down the stairs, we can also meet an old woman.
I know you're there. I can still hear your steps. Give her back. Give me back my little angel, Edward.
You called for Edward. I am here to find him.
Finally. They've sent someone for this filthy freak. I'm sure he took her. Yes, that little stinky fuck. He took my daughter. Oh, do you know anything about my poor baby? About my poor angel?
Focus your attention. Why would Edward take your daughter?
That no-good bastard. He used to harass us all with all kinds of gibberish. He talked about experiments, about the end, about death. God knows what he meant. Maybe he's holding her somewhere, doing God knows what to my girl. Lord have mercy. Will you help me? Will you bring her back to me? I'm so worried about her.
Well, it appears that Edward has taken Angela, apparently, according to this old woman who is Angela's mother, which might explain why she is missing. She was taken. And of course, with his poor mental state, the blind woman here believes that he probably has done something to her, kill her, or worse. Spoiler alert, he hasn't. But at this point, we can either promise to find Angela or just ignore the blind woman's request. And this is going to be a theme that Cronos is going to play into. The humanity of the Traveller. Does the Traveller have humanity? Do they care about humans? It doesn't matter what you pick. Genuinely, you can choose whatever one you want, but I think it plays into the idea of what kind of person you are and how choices at the end of the day sometimes don't really matter. But as we continue on, we can hear a woman go on about Ascension and general holy babble. But anyway, let's just continue forward and find Edward. Heading outside.
Holy shit, this game is beautiful, man.
we enter the same area we were exploring just a little bit ago, but now it is covered in a pretty layer of snow, with it being of course around Christmas time. And we see that we are in a very different time period, much before the world completely fell apart. But anyway, we can explore, finding the shelter is locked. And as we go up to the shelter, we can spot a cat running off in the distance, and like any sane person, we chase it because we want to pet it. Eventually, the cat leads us down a dark alleyway, and following some footprints, we find an open door, and entering it, we can hear two people arguing. And within this building, we can find an orphan hidden underground. Defeating it, the traveler comments that it has begun, telling us that this is the beginning of the outbreak. But here we can obtain the shelter keys, and with it, more orphans appear. Now you might ask, why did the nest have the key at all? Well, a note we can find behind a locked door explains as much. The maintenance worker who had the keys for the shelter was, let's say, not too happy with how many people were breaking the rules and coming to see him to get something or ask him to help them with something, telling us that he got infected due to people constantly mixing with him and not leaving him alone, which again, just a cool side story which ties into the environment and creating a small snippet of a larger whole that this story is telling. Anyway, with the key in hand, we can now find the cat in the playground, pet it because we get the very important item, and collect the cat. And now we can head to the shelter in search of our target, and we descend into the shelter. But as we descend, we can slowly hear singing. And more specifically, a festive tune.
Edward, did you get the... Ah! Stay away! Stay away from me!
Compose yourself.
Please. Please don't hurt me.
I'm not here to harm you.
What are you? What do you want?
Edward Wisniewski. Where is he? Is he keeping you here?
What? Keeping me here? What are you talking about?
Keep your hands off her, you! I was right all along! I knew you were real!
Edward, are you crazy? Do
No,
something!
Listen! It's the government! It's one of them!
One of them? Not this again. I've had it. Fuck this bullshit!
Angela! Angela, stop! What are you doing?
I should never have come here with you.
No, Angela!
Go. She can't be saved. She does not matter.
But it's dangerous outside. The disease. Everyone outside is exposed. That's why I brought her here.
It wouldn't change anything. She does not matter.
She matters to me. I wanted to protect her. At least her. To preserve one thing dear to me in this whole wide, fucked up world. Ah! Government sent me, didn't they? This is some kind of experiment, right?
This is Solace.
What are you doing?
Preserving.
Well, that doesn't sound nice, but we now see these videos again, like at the start of the game, which seem to be memories of someone, maybe of Edward, with my only hint being that is due to all the drawings appearing in the memories which Edward had. But with Edward extracted, we now leave the rift and acquire his essence, with his essence is basically his soul. So now we head back to the terminal with that really big door that we saw earlier, and luckily the game just skips us back there, so we don't need to walk all the way back. Now, each essence we obtained will not only give us some information about the person, but also a little buff alongside it, with Edward here allowing for enemies set on fire to take even more damage. So set them on fire and shoot them, you do bonus damage. A cool system which is completely worthless. Honestly, this system is completely ruined as all the essences we get have such negligible differences and bonuses, they don't make any difference at all. I often forgot I had these bonuses because they made so little difference, and it's such a shame. The only one that I actually found really useful was the one that gives you an increase to the amount of energy you get when you pick energy up. But others are just terrible. One increases your movement speed while aiming, and honestly, I couldn't even tell a difference. Some of them are genuinely worthless, and I think these all need a massive buff to make them more impactful. It's a system that is seemingly just sort of shoehorned in, but you know, you can't make a win with all these systems, and it's clear they didn't want to make us too powerful as well. Before we make our way back to the terminal though, we can find a funny glowing object, and interacting with it we can hear a memory from Edward. And yes, changing essences I think does allow you to see other people's memories, and I'm sure if you run through the game with different essences all the way to the end, they might show you different memories, but this game is linear, so you can't revisit older areas to check if there's new memories there. So again, there's only so many combinations that you can do. But moving on from that, and we return to the terminal.
Reached. Beginning the Ascension Sequence.
That's a thumbnail. Fucking hell. So was that. So is that.
Where am I? What have you done to me?
Given your significance, your extraction has been ordered.
What is this? You giving me acid or something?
You are to join the collective.
The what? What the hell is happening? What did you do?
A choice has been made. Only joining with the rest can give you the possibility of survival.
Cut the crap! I'm not joining anything! I know about the outbreak, about the disease.
What do you know about it? What do you know about the change?
You want to squeeze me for how much I know, huh? Well, then you better get yourself a fucking pen, because damn, I know a lot. I know the truth.
The knowledge you have accumulated may be evaluated as useful.
You think? I know what happened in the Steelworks. You guys fucked up pretty bad, didn't you? It's all your fault!
What you are saying cannot be true.
Everything started to go to hell right after you showed up there.
Elaborate.
For years, no one believed me that the likes of you exist. They thought I was a schizoid freak of specially ordered. That fool came to me. It only confirmed I'm not crazy. And now, There you go. The curtain's up.
This Arthur. Who is he? Why did he come to you?
Because for an ordinary Steelworks worker, Arthur Berica saw his goddamn share of weird.
What did he see?
What's happening?
The Ascendance. It is about to commence.
I'm scared.
Something is wrong.
Focus your attention. What do you see? Dark.
Well, that was a little bit crazy now, wasn't it? But we now seemingly have been transported to a room full of cats, and the traveler learns a new emotion.
Scared.
But she also was ascending the essence, something that someone went on about earlier in the apartments. Ascending. Obviously, this is tying the travelers and the vocation to the church and Christianity and everything. And it's kind of tying into the idea of sort of what is religion? Is it real? Obviously, you have to make your own choice about that. But it kind of asks the idea of the travelers related to Christ in some way and God. Are they angels maybe? Potentially, they could be. But what was going on there? The essence of Edward ascending it, whatever that means, to something. But during all of this, Edward goes on about what happened during the outbreak and how the traveler caused everything that happened at the Steelworks, now raising even more question marks about what actually happened at the Steelworks. But also our non-emotion having character here learns what fear is, with Edward fearing what is actually happening to him and what potentially happens to Angela when she leaves the shelter. But we don't really learn enough. It just raises more questions about what happened at the Steelworks. And exiting this room, we can now meet one of the best characters in the game.
You almost fried there. Good thing I was around. Now, how are you holding up?
The Warden, played by Alan Turkington.
I have not suffered any serious damage. I am fit to proceed with my purpose.
Your purpose? I see.
And the Warden gives us some major lore dumps about the vocation, the travelers, and our mission.
The work of the travelers is eternal. But the tools that serve us are just crude matter. And so, the collective entrusted some of us with a task to keep watch over them.
So you fix things.
I take care of them. Well, at least I did. Before something stopped the Traveler's awakenings. Stopped the vocation. It's been an awfully long time since someone tried to use it. And to be brutally honest, I didn't think the collective would send anyone else.
Can you repair it?
So the vocation has been failing in its mission, with the Warden being surprised by our appearance because he believed that they would not send anyone else. But nonetheless, he does agree to help us on our quest with ascending the essences, so we need to find our next target.
Calculating coordinates for the next extraction target. Arthur Barica.
The next target is Arthur.
Confirmed dive location in A11.
The Steelworks.
And Warden states that we will need to be heading to the Steelworks. So we are going to the very place that we have had so many questions raised about. But also the Warden seems surprised that we were able to speak to the essences.
You spoke with him. Spoke with the essence.
Yes.
Remarkable. The ways in which the terminal communicates its will to us are truly surprising.
displaying that we have a unique ability in some way. Also, the Warden tells us that we, the vocation, didn't cause the outbreak. We were a product that came after of it, telling us that we came after the outbreak, which is obvious as we are traveling back in time to these events.
We are nothing but an aftermath. But
we now need to head to the Steelworks, and to get there we need to get the tram there, but we need to get the tram working. Now of course we can talk to the Warden and he can give us a hell of a lot more information about himself and the collective/vocation, but more importantly we learn that he has been around for so long that he has forgotten how long he has been here.
Time is nothing more than a sequence of existence.
And also that only one traveler is ever awake at one point in time. So that explains why we've not seen another traveler yet. But also he states that the vocation are not the kind of people, company, being, whatever they are, that will reach out to us and tell us what to do. They expect us to perform our job without sound counsel. We just do the job of collecting essences for them without any sort of instructions. Also, he really, and I mean really, likes cats.
I don't resent them for that. They just crave a little attention, like we all do.
And yet they pretend to be so unavailable.
It's just a grand game of appearances. You have to know how to win them over. Luckily, I have a lot of canned cat delicacies that survived. Therefore, I am proud that they graciously allow me to care for them. Beautiful creatures. So sublime. Almost perfect.
Displaying an almost human side to the Warden, something which you might thought we didn't have, as we don't seem to be scared of anything going on around us, but the Warden does state that he was once a traveller, he was once just like us, but he became a Warden after he got too damaged. But why does he have this fondness for cats that we don't have? Some more questions that are being raised about who we are and what the Warden is. But anyway, let us move on. Now the tram section is quite fun, but it's quite long as well. It's all about just getting the tram up and running again, so let's just quickly go through it. We can find a memory of Arthur meeting Edward, and Arthur realizing that Edward wasn't going insane and talking nonsense. He actually saw something terrifying at the Steelworks. Another letter from Angela with it being said she has abandoned her mother in the apartments, the blind woman, but also a new enemy type, the wall boys, which will grab you if you let them, and a very useful upgrade, a device which allows you to see the enemy's health. And it's actually so useful because if you aim at what you believe is a dead body on the floor and it has health, it tells you that that enemy will get up if you walk near them, so you can shoot them to get a free hit in. Now another note also tells us that another traveler was gravely wounded and that they had an essence within them, causing severe hallucinations and other issues.
Target was successful, but a critical complication occurred during the return. I suspect that a perforation in my shell caused the anomaly to negatively affect my vitals. I am experiencing severe perceptual disturbances. They are vivid, substantial, and located in external objective space. I will attempt to reach the target and perform the Ascension Sequence. If I fail, someone will complete my work.
And once we get back to the tram, we can find this fallen traveler.
Another fallen. Attempting data salvage. It seems this one's phylactery is intact. And there's still an essence in it. Maybe I'll be able to retrieve it.
Establish
And we can collect our second essence of a different person, someone who isn't our target, but it's pretty cool that we can collect the essences from previous travelers who have partly done their job. Again, they don't make that big of a difference, but it's still cool to learn more about this world. But now we can reach our destination with the help of the tram, and I think this is the game's best section, the Steelworks.
I've reached Sector A11, the Steelworks. Proceeding to the dive point.
Okay, straight away the Steelworks does a really great job of just telling its story through its environment. From how the military contrabanded basically every item that entered the facility and took it all, and we can see exactly where all these items have been left and kind of just taken from the families who are sending stuff into the workers. And I mean the many wall writings all over the place telling us that the workers were abandoned, and also all the bodies that scattered the floor, abandoned equipment, guns that are on the floor that have obviously been, dropped by soldiers as they've been attacked. It just sets the scene and the tone so well. And again, it's one of Cronos' biggest strengths is just how it uses its environmental storytelling. But also we can meet our very next enemy, this white headless boy. They're fast, nimble, but weak as shit. The game will throw a couple of these at you at once. They're kind of like the viral from Dying Light, very fast, very annoying, but they die very quickly. But their idea is that when there's loads of them, they kind of get overwhelming at times if you don't quickly take care of them. But this is when the game itself gives you more environmental items to shoot, such as the barrels that you can blow up or the petrol cans which you can shoot and set things on fire. This is actually when the combat itself really does start to get fun and honestly it starts to become something unique that I really like. Wanting things like a dodge or a parry in Cronos I think would actually make its combat worse in my opinion, because it would then mean it discourages you from using these environmental things that you can shoot to blow up. And I hope Cronos leans more into this, using environmental stuff to fight the enemies, because that's more what survival horror is about. It's not about being able to, one-on-one take on enemies. It's about using everything at your disposal to kill them, and I think they've done a really good job with that. I know the combat is like a super hot topic. If you look at any review, they'll talk about the game's stiff combat, that it's too difficult, you get the point. But I think people are too used to other games now, and they want games to emulate other games too much, in my opinion, that when games start to try to do something different, it's seen as a negative, which again is just wrong to me. If you want a fun piece of the fact from me, just to show you how stupid that a lot of game reviewers and review sites actually are, when the modern system for aiming in games using both sticks, the left one to move and the right one to move the camera, in Alien Resurrection, which was the first one to actually ever use it, it was seen as a negative. It was seen as too difficult, too complex, and not a good change, which, if you can tell now, almost every modern shooter uses the same setup that Alien Resurrection introduced to us. You use the left one to move and the right one to aim. Yes, the combat might not feel intuitive and natural, but you need to learn games. Games shouldn't be immediately easy. They need time to you need time to get used to them and learn them. And hey, as I learned this game, I found it really enjoyable. I found the combat really engaging, and it made me think about where I was placing my shots. But hey, I'm not paid to, write reviews about games, so I guess my opinion doesn't really matter. But traveling through the Steelworks, we start to hear Edward again, which, yes, from that previous message, tells us that we're going to start having those same issues that the other traveler had when they had the essence. We are going to start to have hallucinations, so we need to quickly complete our mission. Slight problem, gravity is not going to be our friend here, so we need to obtain some anti-gravity equipment to traverse this area. So we need to now complete this new mission to complete our original mission. But to help us with this, we obtain our next bit of equipment, the pyre, which is basically a mine that sets things on fire. And I really like the pyre, it's pretty cool. It's kind of just, the same thing as the torch, but you can shoot it at an enemy and attach it to them, which then blows up obviously, or you can shoot it at the floor when you're running away from an enemy and then blow it up on them. It gives you a bit more control about when the fire is dispersed. Simple, I like it. Now the main narrative in these Steelworks was that there was some sort of uprising at one point with a Gabriel Baryica, being the figurehead and reading about him, it sounds like he is a cult leader, maybe telling us that whatever happened here was the result of cult activities, which explains the well to hell. And maybe they summoned something from hell itself within the Steelworks. And hey, we can find a visual representation of the people's mental state of working here. I'm sure they were all really happy. Gabriel was the sort of figurehead for the workers when they were trapped by the soldiers. He was the one that sort of stood up and spoke up for them. And obviously the military hated this because he's a strong leader. Strong leaders inspire power, inspire revolution, inspire people to change their lives. So obviously he was looked at with a bit of a, we need to get rid of this guy. He's not good here. But anywho, let's move along with some puzzle solving later. We find another note talking about Gabriel and some other men seeing something down in the hell well where the drill exploded. And after this, Gabriel completely disappeared after seeing what was down there, with the workers believing he was taken and just shot and then probably thrown inside the hole, finally ridding the rebellion of their central figure. But you die a powerful figure, you often become a martyr, which probably is what happened and explains the sights that we're seeing now. After a hell of a lot of running around and fighting, we can finally get access to the area to grab the counter-gravity traversal equipment. And this took about an hour, by the way. This game does have a problem, which I'll get into in a bit. But also a note telling us of an inmate being transported to a hospital for a better environment to interrogate them. Now, one of the biggest problems that Cronos has, and how this game is made, is something that Bloober seems to have a really bad problem with how they make their games. More specifically, the amount of goddamn padding that is in the game. Bloober are terrified to make a game shorter than 12 hours, it seems. And man, this game is padded like hell. This game could have easily been shortened down to 8, maybe even 6 hours, like the RE2 remake or the RE3 remake length. And while I love every minute of the game that I played here, I don't think on my second, third, fourth playthroughs I will enjoy as much as my first playthrough. It's the same issue I have with the Silent Hill 2 remake. Bloober just stretched these games so thin that the depths of their systems really start to sort of crack, and you see sort of more issues with the game. The systems that they have in place just aren't enough to cover the game. It's kind of like making a cake, and instead of layering up the cake as this nice thick chunky nice cake, they've spread it out and rolled it out as thin as possible, putting as thin of an icing layer on as possible, but making as big of a cake as possible. Well, yes, you get a good amount of cake for the price. I would much prefer a smaller, chunkier cake to eat that's more layered and better and feels more satisfying to eat over and over again. A weird analogy, I know, but I really do hope Bloober understand the issues that people have with not only this game but the Silent Hill 2 remake. And I hope that with the Silent Hill 1 remake, they don't fall into the same trap of just padding the game out too much that it actually becomes more of a negative for the game and discourages people from playing the game again. I do think if they do it for the third time, especially on the Silent Hill 1 remake, people will make more of an uproar about it and actually see the game more as a negative, which, yeah, probably will, because you can do things only once or twice and people will still go, you know, it's still their like second time making this sort of game. Third time though, they should really get it nailed down and they should really understand what the problem is here. But I think one of the best ways that they could actually just improve the games is just make combat more, I guess, more expansive. I like the combat, don't get me wrong, but give us more tools to play with. There is not enough guns and not enough sort of equipment in this game to warrant this length of playtime. For context, this game is longer than Dead Space 2, but there's not even like half the amount of weapons. There's 4 weapons in the game. Yes, there's variations of each weapon, but I don't really count that as a unique weapon. I count that as just sort of a half weapon. So at most, there's like 6 weapons in this game, plus 2 equipments, the torch and the pyre. And then Dead Space, you have like fucking 15 or something stupid, and all of them are completely unique. And I think that's what this game really needed, was super unique weapons that all do different things. And I think if they did that, the complaints about the combat would completely be just gone, and people would be like, yeah, I enjoy it. I understand when you run the risk of turning it into an action horror, but just give us more tools to play with, allow us to sort of have fun with the game, give us some silly weapons. Like, I'm surprised there was no sort of harpoon launcher in this game, considering Dead Space loved having a harpoon launcher, and all we got was a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle, and a railgun thing. Just kind of, you know, an easy way to expand it, but I digress, of course. But just for me to explain the amount of padding, to grab the anti-gravity boots here, from learning that we need them to actually obtaining them, it takes about an hour or maybe an hour and a half, depending on how fast you play the game. And it just feels unnecessary, and the game has so many just hours when nothing happens, where all you're doing is walking to somewhere and fighting things, which again, it's just give us something, I guess. Like, I won't keep bitching about it, and I'll point out another area where this happens later, but let us continue on our journey. We find yet another voice log from a Dr. Zibet, and quite a few from him as well, with them more specifically being focused on him studying the Orphans and their change, with him having 121 subjects to study. And he finds that the disease does exhibit virus-like behavior, but the way it works defies the laws of nature and doesn't make any sort of sense to be something from this planet or even this universe, hinting at a potential extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional source for the disease. But that doesn't matter. A new weapon, the dagger, and this is the other pistol that uses the exact same ammo type as the starting pistol, but has a different secondary fire, which is full auto. And I don't like these. I really don't. I'm gonna bitch now. So Cronos, there are 4 weapons as I stated, with the pistol, the shotgun, and the rifle having 3 alternate versions. The pistol one here, specifically what I'm going to use, is a full auto pistol. You have the basic shot and the full auto pistol, and then the other one has the basic shot and the charge shot. This system and this idea falls so flat. The basic pistol is solid, simple. It is, you have a simple shot and you have a charge shot, and that's it. It works perfectly. But the other pistol replaces the charge shot with a full auto function. It doesn't do more damage than the full auto function, it just does the basic shot but fully automatic. So my question is, what is the point? The gun therefore burns bullets like hell, and you'll run out of ammo almost immediately in it, and it just doesn't hit hard enough to warrant using over the basic pistol. And all 3 weapons are like this. One variant is significantly better than the other. The shotgun, the exact same. The other one makes you shoot 2 bullets at once, but you do double the damage, but the charged one is just better because you use 1 bullet per charged shot, but it does sort of the same amount of damage. It just doesn't make sense, and I was so disappointed by this system. The rifle is probably the best one, because one has this sort of homing feature, and the other one is obviously the charged burst gun. That one's a bit cooler to me and is more unique, and I wish they did that, more unique variations of the weapons. I think with something like the pistol, they should have just given it something super unique, like give it, I can't even, like, I want to say like I'll give it fire rounds, give it something different, but like there isn't enough in this game to really like go, oh yeah, you can do that or this or this. I don't know, I feel like the guns needed to be more unique, especially for them being the exact same weapons. You couldn't just do these simple slight differences. They needed like these big differences to make you actually go, okay, do I want this one or that one? Because it's very clear which ones are better and which ones are worse. And I have such a problem with this, I'm not even going to mention the other 2 weapons. If you want to know, I can't even remember which rifle is the main rifle, but one of the rifles has the charged function that the pistol and shotgun have, but it is a burst weapon. The other rifle is like a lock-on feature, so you hold down the trigger and it locks on and shoots for you, hitting the head constantly, which is a cool feature, I will be honest. And then the shotgun, you get either a normal shotgun with a charge shot, or you get the shotgun that you can hold down and shoot 2 bullets instead of 1, acting as like a proper double barrel shotgun, which is pointless, honestly. It's so worthless because wasting ammo like that is just not worthwhile. But yeah, that's all the weapons. Obviously there is a 4th weapon, but that doesn't have a variation that I know of, and I can find one. But let's just move on. Moving along, we can find evidence of a riot occurring, and a note tells us that that very thing happened. The workers got sick of staying where they were, and they revolted against the military, and obviously tried to fight their way out. And past all that, we can finally find our predecessor and collect the equipment that we need. Again, it's been about an hour. But we also can find a new enemy type, what I call the spider. These spitty boys that crawl all over the place and on the ceiling, and definitely set off your arachnophobia. I really like them. They are a really cool design, and they are really unique and obviously change the way you play the game. A big issue that all of horror and survival horror games is enemies are always the same height, so your crosshair always stays at head height. This is something only my Counter-Strike brain thinks of, but when my crosshair is forced to then move up or down, I see it as a positive because it engages you more with the game and makes you have to move a bit more. The crawly boys being on the ceiling, the walls, lower down, it forces you to be, aim more, because if you're good at aiming and you just keep your crosshair dead center and only move it left and right, you can basically headshot everything in this game other than the big boy. But the spider boys, the way they move, it really does make you have to properly aim at them, which is a good thing. But now with the gravity boots, it now allows us to manipulate gravity at certain spots and fly across the map, kind of like Dead Space's 0G sections, but with gravity and no control over yourself. You kind of just look at a location, you press a button, and you get flung over there. But anyway, flying through the world, we eventually reach the rift we are after, and of course we enter it.
Temporal destination reached. Proceeding with the search for the target, Artur Batica.
So we have found ourselves in the past of these Steelworks, and we can immediately find behavioral analysis of that prisoner that was transported earlier, with it apparently being distrustful, but not scared or aggressive, so it just doesn't trust humanity. But also a tape that fills us in about the subject itself.
Taped interview 17. The subject struggles with speaking clearly. It seems to me as...
Doctor, you are not here to make conjectures about the subject's well-being.
You want to come down here and swap, Sergeant?
You're out of line, Doctor.
Please, help me out here. Don't make it any more difficult.
What do you expect of me?
You need to start answering questions.
Ask them.
What is this illness? How do we stop it?
What has already happened cannot be changed.
Why are you here then?
Your world is to end.
Yeah, I've noticed. What is your part in it? What is your mission?
My vocation.
Yes. What's the point of it all? Are you to save people? Or to harm us?
I, too, would like to learn that.
And we can hear it speak. So the disease seemingly was inevitable and the end of the world was always going to happen. But the subject is one of us, mentioning the vocation specifically. Obviously with the disease being destiny and always fated to happen, it asks the question of, does that mean we can change the future at all? Obviously that's more questions about what the disease actually is, where does it originate from, is the future set in stone? Can we change the future? Questions that obviously my Xenoblade loving ass always asks about games in my own life, loves diving into this topic. But despite the many things that the good doctor learns, the government are not happy with the way she is doing it, seeing it as more pseudo-philosophical chit-chat or a waste of their time, believing that the visitor, the subject that they have captured, caused the infection itself, and he is just a time bomb waiting to basically blow up and infect everyone else. Obviously, they want to do the government thing and destroy it. Now, they were able to determine something with the use of carbon testing. They found that various parts of the traveler here, the subject one, come from all different time periods, and all periods are unknown to them. So they can't figure out when the subject actually originated from. If you want to know, that probably tells us that we are indeed from the future, but that we're from different periods of time almost tells us that different time periods were like visited and they were collected the equipment, brought it to the future, and then made the travelers if we were made. And while the engineers also tried to reverse engineer the equipment they found on the traveler, the technology that they found was completely against the laws of physics. It didn't make any sense to them and they couldn't figure them out. This tells us that the travelers either come very deep in the future, or they are from a different universe entirely where there are different laws of physics in place. And you want to know the crazy thing? This question is never answered. We never actually learn the true origins of the travelers and the vocation. This is the most concrete evidence we get about them. What the scientists learn here is basically all we will know. We know that either they come from the future or they're from a different dimension entirely. Also, we can find a photo in this room that also confirms that the subject was indeed a traveler. In case you weren't fully convinced yet, that is a photo of a traveler as well. And in a cell, we find a note from someone seemingly having been interrogated by the government after seeing what they saw in the Steelworks where the drill was. This is probably Gabriel, if I have to assume. And we can hear this interrogation happen as well.
Already told you. With a group of workers, we went underground under the main furnace to find the missing.
Chill out the workers, Comrade Batica. Just answer the questions. What did you see there?
It was horrible. Their bodies, their skin, their limbs. It was as if something merged them with each other. Will this happen to all the infected?
Answer the questions, Batica. What else did you see?
There was some
Seems he saw not only the Traveler, but also the very first sight of the flesh, the biomass infection. And exploring further, we now see the infection has already begun to spread.
Don't shoot!
Well, seems we've finally met the doctor who, get it, who interviewed the asset, and somehow she survived everything that has been going on in the Steelworks. And in all of this chaos, the Traveler raises that question to her, asking,
"Why are you here?"
Which is a good question. Why is the doctor still in the Steelworks even when the asset was transported away? Why is she still here when the infection is spreading? And someone gives us that answer.
What I am asking is, why are you here now?
Please just let me go. There's no one here left alive. I saw nothing, I swear. I got lost when I was looking for...
Yes.
I was...
Seems like she was working with Arta, our target, and despite us trying to stop her from running away, Edward stops us.
What has happened?
It's clear the essences are starting to have a much bigger impact on the Traveler herself, but we need to get to the foreman's office to get the next essence and get back to the terminal. And man, I love this section a lot. Just seeing all the torn apart bodies scattered about the place, all the notes talking about people seeing the orphans and them losing all hope. It really is akin to Dead Space in how it presents the horror of the outbreak on the Ishimura, and also in Dead Space 2 in the city, which this really reminded me of. And eventually at one point we can see a massive conflict between the soldiers and the orphans. Obviously, it doesn't go the way of the soldiers, we know how it ends. And of course, we get to join in this big battle with some of the orphans as well, which is good fun, I can't lie. My only wish is that there was actually human soldiers here that we could shoot as well, which I think would be kind of funny. But obviously the Travelers are trying to save the humans and everything, we think. So it wouldn't make sense for them to shoot the humans. But I thought it would just be fun to see other combatants in the field as well. Also, it would give us another enemy type to fight. But of course, that would make sort of fall into the same trap that Dead Space 3 fell into. But as we slowly make our way to find Arthur, we will encounter our next enemy type.
What the dog doing?
The enemy that I refer to as the dog, a four-legged orphan that is big, tanky, and hits really hard. And what I like about it is that I think it has multiple heads, meaning it has multiple weak spots. And this is a really fun boss to fight, and it is a really fun design as well. It's also the one that I found the most challenging because it moves fast and the heads are kind of in awkward spots, mainly on the legs. So you often have to sort of get these quick shots in and then sort of back out again and just sort of run around a bit. It's fun, I like it. I'm going to stop glazing it. But past this boss fight, we can finally find Arta.
Please, we don't have time.
We just didn't want to be alone.
Stay back!
Brother! He came back!
Well, he don't look like he's doing very well, does he?
Onto a body count.
You brought that on us, you fuck!
Calm down. I'm here to save you, Arthur.
Save me? Are you fucking blind? Look at him! I just wanted to find my brother, bring him back home and then... Fuck!
Compose yourself.
No.
Step away from him and remain still.
No, Arthur, please make it stop! Our bones, the pain! Our pain!
I'm sorry.
Brother!
Can you help him?
His fate is set. It cannot be changed.
What?
He is not the target. You are.
Me? He was the one who saw you back then. He was there when you started all of this.
And yet, you are the one chosen to join.
Fuck I am. Look! Damn it. Look! What he's been doing all the time. If you want me? Why do all this to him? Why make him fucking sick? What for?
I don't. I didn't.
Okay. Let's try something else then. He goes with you. Because I'm going to hell.
Don't do it!
It's your fault! Don't you fucking understand? Your kind brought the disease to our world. Let's save him, alright? Take him, we can fix him!
But now here we are given a choice. Follow our mission and collect Arta, our target, or change our target and help Arta by taking his brother and saving him. Now his brother knows way more about what happened. He was the one that actually saw what the drill uncovered. He is Gabriel after all. So that raises the question, why was our target Arta? Why would we want to take someone's essence who knows significantly less about what happened? Isn't that the whole reason we're doing all this? We're trying to find people that know more about what is going on. So is there any difference between choosing Arta or Gabriel? Does it lead to a different ending? Spoiler alert, it doesn't fucking matter. It genuinely doesn't, and that's kind of a big disappointment to me. You do get a different essence which give a different effect, either boosting your pistol damage or shotgun damage, but it feels like such a missed opportunity to me. You could have created a really cool split story here that reveals completely different details, but Arta somehow reveals the same information that Gabriel reveals in slightly different way, which is again pretty disappointing. But if you want to know the difference, if you choose Arta, your pistol gets a boost to damage. If you choose Gabriel, your shotgun gets a boost to damage. Now yes, we do get a different cutscene later, but it's not a big enough difference to actually warrant you debating which one to pick. Just pick one or the other. I chose to pick Gabriel for the shotgun boost, which I was disappointed with. But with us extracting an essence of our choice, we get to see more of those video memory things, showing very cryptic images. But with the essence acquired, we now need to head back to the terminal and ascend this essence. Gabriel as well was the figurehead again of the workers, and the reason he disappeared was because he got sick. That's why he disappeared. He was probably put into isolation and was studied by Dr. Zibet. But the reason he was probably sent down into the hole was probably because they wanted to try kill him, to get him infected so he dies, which is kind of fucked if you think about it. But anyway, reaching the terminal, we find that it's completely offline, so we need to find the Warden and ask him to do his job and fix the goddamn terminal.
The bar is closed, but I don't think anyone will ask us to leave. Come. Join me.
What is all this?
This? Magnificent. Don't you think?
Our work is to save them, not admire them.
But how to accomplish one without the other? This is how I do my own part in saving them. Well, at least a fracture of what they once were.
Don't you think it's all trivial?
In perspective of perpetuity, what isn't but a trivial thing? What's the endless existence worth, deprived of even a moment of introspection and unadulterated joy? For some reason, people listened to music once, went to the theater, played games, and told each other stories. These things are not crucial to survival, and yet it is without them that there would be no humanity. It's a paradox, or an anomaly rather.
So, the human race is an anomaly to you?
perfect one. Listen. Unfortunately, the whole thing was not preserved, so I dared to fill in the gaps with my own invention. Don't you think it catches the ear?
It is nice. But you are wasting time.
Wasting? To waste something you barely have. Isn't it something grand? When can you value the time you've been given the most, if not here and now? When your time is linear and finite, its entire concept may differ from the one we've been taught. This is what made them superior in a way.
I don't think we were designed the same way.
Designed? Sadly, I'm struck with a similar impression.
You really got affected by them.
Too late, I did.
Too late for what?
To do something about all that. But you still have a chance.
Not without the terminal.
I've switched it off.
What? Why?
I guess even a machine needs a rest from time to time, you know?
What?
Oh, calm down. I had to cut the power off while I was rewiring the whole thing. Would you kindly go to the switchgear? The upper floor. You need to find a restaurant there. Too fancy for my tastes. For a maintenance shaft location, though, just fine. I will be at the terminal to start the circuit when you turn it on.
Now this scene is very obviously, and I mean very obviously, philosophical here. It's talking about the point of living and lasting forever. If it deprives beings of moments of introspection and reflection, i.e. what the Traveller referred to as a waste of time, is there a point to life? And also, is the way that the Warden is preserving humanity by obviously collecting things that mean things to humanity and trying to learn as much as possible, is that any less valuable than what we are doing? Is it a waste of time to try and learn as much as you can and try to become as knowledgeable and familiar with something and respect something? But also he asked the question, can something be a waste of time if you yourself value it? But also, if you're like me, you might then ask, how do you waste time if you can time travel? If you can just go back in time and redo everything, can you technically waste time if you have unlimited amounts of it? But this cutscene here to me, more importantly, highlights a massive difference between the Warden and the Traveller. The Warden is much more fond of humans. He sees the humanity in them and the beauty of them and their activities. He likes music, something which a being from another dimension or the future that has no emotions shouldn't really care about. They shouldn't even feel anything to it, but he wants to learn it. He likes to hear it. He's grown to care about music itself and the history of it, most likely. This also is reflected in his fondness of cats, indicating he's almost started to become like the humans. While he doesn't really show any real emotion towards us or them, he does show a level of fondness that is unfamiliar to the Traveller, but something that the Warden, he shows annoyance.
Wasting. Designed.
he's annoyed that the Traveler sees what he views as important as a waste of time, displaying he himself has learned some level of emotions from the humans as well, like we did earlier when we learnt what fear was. But we need to get back to our mission. Enough philosophical talk. We need to get the terminal back online. The Warden turned it off as he was fixing it, and he asked us that we just need to go turn it on now. So we go and do that. Now, most of this section, honestly, is absolute filler. But at the end of it, we find another audio log from the Warden, in which he is confused about how the targets are being selected for us, the Traveler, and that we are very different compared to the other Travelers he has met. Of course, this just raises even more questions about us and who we are and what makes us so special, but we can't really answer any of them questions, so we continue on. But now we can actually use the terminal again, and depending on who you saved or extracted, we either meet Arthur or Gabriel, and both of them talk about what they saw, with Arthur talking more about the response to what happened at the Steelworks and the subject itself and a Dr. Zibet. And Gabriel talks more about the horrors he saw in the hull and also mentions Dr. Zibet. These cutscenes lead to the exact same questions being asked about what Dr. Zibet was actually researching, and it ends with something, of course, going wrong.
It only brought more pain. You should have left us be. You should.
You said it was safe to use.
I also said it's not yet fully operational. You wanted answers. This was the only way. Did you find any?
At the Steelworks. One of us was there. He was captured and examined.
What did they do to him?
I don't know. When I arrived, he wasn't there anymore. There was an outbreak. Everyone perished.
I see.
But there was a doctor who was assigned to examine him. Zibet. If he's still alive, maybe there is a chance this predecessor is not lost after all.
Or at least he may know what really happened out there.
Such is our calling. Calculating coordinates for the next extraction target. Dr. David Zibet.
Well, our next target is a Dr. Zibet, and it leads us to Area A0, the same area we saw which was described as very dangerous, the hospital, and the Warden warns us of the dangers there. But we need to go there, and to help us with this elevated level of danger, we can find our third kind of weapon, the carbine rifle, and honestly, this is the shittest weapon in the game. You don't get enough ammo for it throughout the entirety of the game, so you can't really use it that much, and it also just uses too many bullets to kill orphans, so it's kind of just shit. It needs a massive buff, honestly, to make it feel worthwhile. I did upgrade it a bit, but I never really found it super useful to actually deal with enemies. I think it's really good against bosses, personally, because obviously you've got a big mag cap and you can just sort of dump the rounds into them to do quite a bit of damage. But then I just used the shotgun to do even more damage. So again, it's just sort of a weak weapon that kind of finds itself in an awkward spot, but it's still worth picking up and keeping. But flying around the gravity section and some puzzles, we reach the next area to explore. More apartments, and man, the padding gets pretty bad here. I can't even lie. While there is some notes for us to find and more of the same about, you know, the life of the people, it doesn't really answer any of the questions that you have at this point. And this entire section is like 1.5 hour long. So it just feels so pointless and so drawn out. And I hate saying that again, because when I was playing it, I was really enjoying it. But now looking back, I'm like, yeah, this entire section was almost pointless. And I think what Bloober really needed to do with this game was either pull back on these sections, or in my opinion, what they should have done change the locale of what we're exploring. Like this outside market, Christmas market area. It's a great area and I love it, but it's so short. The apartment areas, there are just too many of them. There's like 6 or 7 apartment areas. They're different apartments. They're not the same apartment building. They're different apartment buildings. And I think that's kind of the problem. They needed more different areas, in my opinion. There's no like supermarket level or a school or a gym, something different and unique that just stands out from the rest of the game and makes it feel more like just more fun to explore, which is kind of odd considering they did Silent Hill 2 remake, and that has one of the best sort of variety of areas in any horror game. But the areas that I will call intermission areas, which are the parts that connect the main key areas, so like the Steelworks to the hospital, are just so similar looking, and it just creates this bland feeling that the game has, and I think this explains why people complaining about how much it's padded. Don't get me wrong, these sections are still fun. The combat is good in these sections, the exploration is interesting, the notes you can find are interesting, but looking back and analyzing this game again, like not in the moment, but you know, as I've beaten the entire game, it's clear that there was less effort put into this part of the game. It's very clear these areas were made quickly and not as much time was put into them. Just comparing it to something like what we just went through, the Steelworks, from beginning to end, the way it paces its storytelling and the combat and everything is done so much better than in these sections. There's nothing really worth pointing out in these sections. There is a lot of notes, but there's not any notes that really enhance the story and I think are essential to your guys' understanding of the game itself. And I think when people read this game specifically, these sections will be the ones that really grate on people the most, because there's just nothing here. There's only so many times you can go for a block of flats and make them interesting to play through. But anyway, eventually after a lot of traversal, we will reach the anomaly that we are after, and here we enter A0.
Temporal destination reached. Proceeding with the search for the target, Dr. David Zibet.
So the hospital section, what do I think of it? I don't mind it, it's pretty good. It obviously dives into the more of the physical changes that people went through, and we learn a lot about what the infection actually did to people. And we can see specifically with these really cool x-rays of a human head being in someone's chest. But more importantly, we hear a familiar voice.
Hello? Do you read me?
This is Dr. Weronika Kamiński. I'm
Stuck in the elevator on level 3. I need
help. Can anybody hear me?
I can.
Shit. It's you. You are a stubborn bunch, aren't you? Well, tough luck. Guess you won't get me as long as I'm stuck here.
I'm not here for you. My target is Dr. David Zibet.
What?
David! And how has he done you wrong?
He possesses the information I'm after. I am not here to hurt him. I'm here to
extract him? Yeah. I know all about it. Hate to break it to you, but you're wasting your time. If you're looking for information, it's me you want. David and I, we worked together. There's nothing he wouldn't tell me. And I can share whatever I know.
I need to know everything. About the Steelworks, the outbreak, the other traveler.
Yeah. I'll tell you everything. But first, you'll need to get me out of here. You're good with that?
No tricks this time.
All right.
All right.
Any idea what's blocking the elevator?
Biomass. It seems to have accumulated here in order to form a nest.
Fuck. We need to get rid of it.
I can't burn it. It's covered in sand.
And it regenerates too fast, I know. But we could use something we were working on here. A sort of toxin? The problem is, you can't just inject it anywhere. We need to find the right spot. It's hard. You need to get 3 specific formulas. They're designated Z5, C66, and X44. Find them and I'll tell you how to mix them.
Where should I look?
Check the infectious diseases ward, the medical supply perhaps, and hell, let's try my office too. It's in the administration section.
On my way.
Keep this channel open. I'll try to guide you through this mess.
So we need to help save Veronica from the elevator and create a toxin to destroy the heart of the biomass. And this entire section is about that very puzzle. While a cool environment, there isn't really a lot to really discover here. It's just more about, talking about Dr. Zibet's research on the orphans and the disease, and it goes more into what it does to people and how they merge. And yes, this is kind of when the penny drops where the orphans are people. So if you didn't figure that out yet, there you go. The orphans are all real people. But also it obviously outlines the outbreak that occurred in the hospital. If you want to know, some of the workers from the Steelworks were transported from the Steelworks to the hospital to be treated. They couldn't be treated, of course, and eventually it just infected the entire hospital, creating almost 2 outbreak locations, making it almost impossible to contain. But in the hospital, we have a lot more hallucinations, which is a cool thing this game does. But I can't really talk about them too much because, they don't really say anything. They're just these cool moments and I like them and they're a highlight of this section, and I think this makes the section a lot stronger. If you want to know, the essences cause hallucinations when they remain in the Traveler for too long, as we haven't ascended them yet. So it's just going to get worse and worse as the game goes on, and obviously plays into that horror of losing yourself. But also here we can find a room that seems like a crazy person was put in who was being treated, and I think this might be Gabriel, because they seem to know a lot about the Travelers themselves. But Dr. Zibet did make a very big discovery. He discovered that the disease itself's origins date all the way back to the beginning of the universe, which that's very old. But it explains why the Travelers stated that it was always destined to happen. The Travelers can't travel back early enough to stop the disease from forming and beginning. If it's been there from the beginning of time, you can't go before it because time doesn't exist before that point. So that tells us that 14 kilometers into the Earth, there is a disease buried beneath us that if we drill up, will release on the world. It's a really cool, interesting concept. And obviously it's a very good way to, prevent people saying, well, if the Travelers can time travel, why don't they just go before the disease and stop it from happening? It was always there. It always existed in time. It is as old as the Big Bang. Or God created it. You never know. Anyway, collecting all 3 of the needed materials to create the toxin, we can create the toxin and then inject it into the heart of the biomass, thus freeing the elevator. And now we head back to the elevator to Veronica, but she is gone.
I jumped down at Dark Abyss, Silent Hill 2 reference. Ooh!
Wink wink, nudge nudge, that isn't a reference to anything. Of course it's a reference to Silent Hill. But now in the basement area, or the lower level of the hospital, we can make our way through what seems to be a massive sick bay, finding notes about a visitor, the Traveler, and we also find the next boss fight. Which is okay. It did bug out a bit for me, but it's basically the big dog enemy and we just fight it again. Eventually though, beating the boss, we can find where Veronica ran off to.
Not like this. God damn it, David. You were supposed to bring him here. You said it's the safest place.
Are you hurt?
No.
I'm sorry. Your mission has failed.
Yes, I have failed. Everything, everyone I cared about, gone.
And the other Traveler? Where is he?
I don't know.
What caused the outbreak in the Steelworks? Was it the Traveler?
No. Are you insane? The Pathfinder would rather die than harm us.
The Pathfinder?
That's what he called himself.
Why were you looking for him? Why is he so important to you? Do you still think he will help you discover the cure?
I was trying to protect him, all right?
Why?
He did me a favor. And I was trying to return it. I was his target.
You? Why didn't he perform an extraction on you then? You were destined to make the Ascension.
Maybe because I didn't want it. Or maybe he just felt that what you were doing was more harm than good.
You are deluding yourself. I have seen the future. Without the extraction, you are doomed. You are.
In that case, maybe it's better that we don't exist at all. Or maybe, just maybe, it's not worth giving up yet.
He can still help us find him.
Okay? So you are fucking insane. Look at him, damn it! No! No!
If I don't try, whatever is left of his mind will soon fade away. He will be gone forever, and with him, all the answers we need. The Steelworks, the outbreak, his mission, my awakening. I need to make sense of it all. It's not worth giving up yet.
Can you promise me it will bring him ease?
Yes.
Do it.
So this cutscene answers a few questions, that the Traveler was called the Pathfinder, and Dr. Zibet here seems to have merged with quite a few people, and extracting his memories they seem, and I mean seem, very scattered, with a focus on the Pathfinder themselves. Anyway, with the essence extracted we of course need to return to the terminal, but we're having some problems.
The Pathfinder. I have to tell the Warden. Something's not right.
Well, something is definitely wrong, so let us hurry back to the terminal. Oh, what is going on here?
Please, Alisa, I don't have much time. I know we've had our differences, but...
What do you want? Speak! I've got matters to attend.
There is something I need you to hide.
Something is very wrong with us.
Togetherness. Conflict.
Would rather die than harm us.
This eventually leads to us passing out and appearing back at the terminal.
Warden?
Yes? What is it? What's wrong?
She...
Fire. Spreading.
Oh no. It's happening.
She called him dark.
Easy. The essences. We need to get them out of here. Quickly.
Animal. Fighting.
Get them out!
I will. I promise. Just try to.
She called him the Pathfinder.
The Pathfinder.
Again. What is your purpose?
Easy there.
What is this place? Have I been here before?
It's my workshop. I've already brought you up to speed once here. When you first connected to the terminal.
They went silent. The essences. You stopped them.
I'm afraid that what I managed to do was only a temporary measure. We need to get them out of here. Otherwise, they won't stop. They're fighting. The state they are in is not natural for them. They have already spent too much time in your phylactery.
Can't I just... release them?
Unfortunately, they have bonded with you so deeply that they have become an integral part of your identity. You can try to replace them with others, but if you simply remove one of them, your whole being will collapse.
What will happen to me then?
Eventually, they will win. They will take over and deprive you of your sanity, of your mind. You're running out of time.
Can you do something about it?
In order to get them out safely, I have to fix the terminal. And believe me, I've tried every possible way, and it still won't cooperate with me.
The Pathfinder. Does that name mean anything to you?
I'm truly not sure. Maybe. I think I once came across such a term in the archives. I'll have to rummage through them. Maybe I'll find something useful. And where are you going, traveler?
I need to talk to Dr. Zibet. He may know what happened to the Pathfinder. If I succeed, maybe we'll be able to find him. Maybe the terminal will cooperate with him.
Very well. Let's not waste any time then. I'll search the archives, and you do what you must. I'll be here when you're done.
Well, with us waking up now and the Warden saving us, we need to go to the terminal in order to speak to Dr. Zibet to figure out where the Pathfinder went, as he might know how to fix the terminal in order to save us from the essences taking over our psyche. But with us using the terminal, of course, it isn't exactly what we were expecting.
What happened? Where is everybody?
You're Angela. But how?
We see Angela, and basically Angela merged with Dr. Zibet, so she's like the main body, but she has all of their memories. So we extracted Angela's essence. You might ask, why is Angela there? Well, we did find notes that Angela was at the hospital to find someone, and of course the hospital was almost like a ground zero place, so she obviously just got caught in the infection. She was looking more specifically for her blind mother, who was sick, but through her we are able to talk to Dr. Zibet.
I really wanted to help him.
And Zibet failed to create a cure for the people, and he felt like his entire work was a failure. But the Pathfinder was ordered to be executed by the soldiers. But Zibet wanted to save him, believing that he was the answer to saving humanity. And we learn this all the while Angela is having like this mental break about a daughter she had, an Alisa, and we are instructed to find the daughter Alisa. And the Traveler experiences a hell of a lot of new emotions from the many people she extracted in one go. Now, Angela, I don't think is the mother of Alisa, because I think she's a bit too young to be her mother, but it's meant to show that Angela's memories are so clouded, and it mirrors the Traveler herself with the essences. The essences are taking over the Traveler's psyche, and Angela here, her psyche has been completely warped and taken over by many other people. We are able to speak to an entirely different person through Angela, because her mind is completely taken over by them because she merged with them. It's almost like we, the Traveler and the Vocation, are the same thing as the biomass flesh, which is a theory which definitely could be something, considering a certain secret in this game, but nothing is confirmed about that quite just yet. Now, our next target turns out to be Mother Alisa Zibet, the daughter of Dr. Zibet himself, and this target will now lead us to the outskirts of the city, to more specifically the Abbey. And yes, we have another tram section to go through. It's a lot more of the same and a bit of combat here. I'm joking, it's all combat and puzzles and just shit to do. The only really interesting thing here that I really want to comment on is we find another essence, but for a child. And throughout the area, we've been finding notes about a family, and there has always been mentions of a father, a mother, and a child, at the beginning of the game more specifically. But alongside the child Marcel's essence, we find our next weapon, the Big Bang one, the Arbalest, or the Railgun. Great weapon, but you basically get no ammo for it, so you get like 4 shots in total for it. I like it, but it's kind of disappointing because I wanted to use it more. I'm sure in New Game Plus, when I start playing through it again, I'll use it more, but it's kind of disappointing, I can't lie. Now, with the child essence, you might ask, why did a child become a target? What determines what makes someone a target? At first, I thought it was about how much they knew about the infection and what happened to the world, that the collective need to gather as much information to try combat it. But it seems like they're just collecting human essences. A child wouldn't know that much, so why do they have it? You might believe, or maybe it's just because they want to try save them, which is, you know, might be a nice thing that they're trying to save as many people as possible, but then why are they like ignoring some people and then saving others? There's obviously a reason for picking certain people over others, but what is that reasoning for picking them? This just is more questions that don't really get answered again, and it just makes the Vocation and the collective so much more interesting and mysterious. But anyway, in the third set of apartments we enter, we find a bunch of drawings on the wall of a traveler, seemingly having made friends with the children of the building, which might explain why Marcel was a target. But also, if you want to know, his mother was one of the essences we found much earlier in the game. And it might explain why they are targets. Maybe they sheltered another traveler at one point, or the Pathfinder. Now, an interesting thing we can also find here is a memory from Dr. Zibet and Veronica. With it being revealed, Veronica met the Pathfinder before meeting him at the Steelworks and interviewing him, indicating to us that she knows a hell of a lot more about what is going on, and highlights her as a much more important character that we need to focus ourselves on.
I know it's not professional, but sometimes I'm afraid I've done the wrong thing by dragging you back here.
Because it's dangerous? David, please.
It might as well be happening anywhere else.
Yes. Although, one thing bothers me. Why did it want to talk specifically to you?
It's a he. He is a person.
Yeah, sorry. This isn't the first time he's appeared here, is it? You knew him before the Steelworks, didn't you?
David, I told you. It's better you...
I need to know.
That was the moment we met. But that doesn't mean we didn't know each other before.
Get into weirdo shit.
And now we find ourselves in the final area of the game, the Abbey. And this area is pretty cool with a very unique aesthetic and a fun voice to annoy us. Now, puzzle-wise and combat-wise, this is where the game peaks, as it's where you have access to all the weapons and all the different puzzle types that this game has to offer. But we also get the perspective of the church's approach to the outbreak compared to the military and the doctors in the hospital. They saw the outbreak as a gift from God, and they chose to embrace the disease, seeing it as almost the next stage of humanity. But at the center of the area, there is a central door puzzle, which we need to find all the items to unlock it. A simple puzzle, but it gives us a clear objective. And throughout this area, we find a bunch of notes from a bunch of different people who seemingly have given up, accepting what is happening and embracing the end, embracing the church's way of viewing it, that the disease is the future. But also we can find the final family member, the father of Marcel, with it being revealed that he is a soldier in the notes, saying sorry to his wife for leaving her, as he was obviously in the military, so he was forced to probably control people at the steelworks and be there and away from his family. And he wishes that he had more time and he spent more time with his family. He went to the church to try to be forgiven for what he did before his death, but obviously this led to him being infected and dying at some point, but he was actually extracted by a traveler. Him then disappearing basically then led his wife to try to find him, which then meant the child was abandoned in that toy shop, which then led the child left alone and then extracted. This led to every single person in this family being extracted, as we have all three of their essences now. But you might ask what actually happens after extraction. Again, we don't know. But this is a great story that is laid out across the entire game, which I really like, because we find notes across the entire game from these family members, more specifically the father and the mother, and occasionally the son. But it kind of just sort of displays how just desperate people were to be with each other and how they wished they just had more time. Time, a central point of this game about using it wisely and making sure you make the most of your life, which I'm sure this game isn't trying to make a message about that at all. But we need to find all of those items, so quickly doing said task, entering a graveyard, a crypt, and opening the door, we enter the penultimate boss fight in the game.
Let's end this.
This false messenger, this empty conjurer, the one who saves, for the kind of man,
I need this traveler. Back off, or I'll fire.
we feel the fire no
And I really like this boss fight a hell of a lot. It isn't just a normal enemy or another four-legged boy, but a unique puzzle boss encounter, with the voice that has been speaking to us as we traverse the Abbey grounds being revealed that it's Alisa, the daughter of Dr. Zibet. And you might question, why is she able to speak? Why is she still in there? Was it her undying faith? Is the disease actually from God, and because she stayed faithful and, you know, she was a pure woman, she was able to ascend? Well, I think it's because she emerged with so many people, she almost evolved in a way with the disease and became the most powerful out of them all. But anyway, eventually shooting the orange cysts, we will do enough damage to Alisa to kill her.
father with you now?
Yes, he is.
I would so much like to tell him. To tell him that we were both wrong. We just wasted our time together. I'm sorry for that. God is giving me one more chance to meet him. My real God, not his thing. This time, I will not be afraid. I will not hesitate. I will not back down. Now, into your hands, Lord.
Well, let us inspect the Pathfinder here.
I found the Pathfinder. Is gone.
I was gonna say, that is, yeah.
Yes, his number matches that of the Warden, and we find that his last target was Veronica, the doctor that was interrogating him, the one he got so close to. So why didn't he extract her? Why was he scared to? But before we answer any of them questions, he has left a message for us on his person.
This is a warning. I am leaving because I no longer believe in the validity of the vocation. Maybe it is to my own misfortune that I got close to people. But when I did, I discovered what they really were. And so, I don't think our work helps them become a better being. They are perfect now, in their imperfection. Full of hope, unyielding, bright, and deciding their own fate. That's why I won't let them be put together into the cogs of a machine that dehumanizes them. And above all, I can't let anyone else take her, for she was the only one who saw one of them in me. Fortunately, I believe I have found a way to stop it all. No more extractions. No more awakenings. But for those who are still there, if somehow you are there, do not follow. Don't trust in the collective. All that matters to them is their own hunger.
You just wanted to protect people? Protect her. That's all there is to it.
It is revealed that he wanted to protect the people, more specifically protect Veronica, stating that the collective didn't want to save humanity. They just wanted to satiate their hunger, be it for knowledge, power, control, or energy maybe. Whatever it was, they were extracting humans to satiate this hunger. It wasn't to save them, but to gain something. And this now raises a bunch more questions about what we are doing. So we take the body of the Pathfinder and make our way back to the tram and back to the terminal. But at the terminal, we find a bunch of dead orphans. So we need to find the Warden, and going to his workshop, a new door opens for us, in which we... Blimey lass, you can be gentle with him, but more importantly, another voice.
The sleeping ones. If they are
Now that reveals that the Warden was using the other travelers' bodies for something, as he figured out they had no consciousness or being within them when they were not awakened. They only gained that consciousness or the being within them when they were awoken. And in another room we find prison cells filled with the other bodies of travelers, which displays to us that the Warden was up to some sort of greater plan. He wanted to do something with these bodies that we didn't know about, something with consciousness. And at this point the hallucinations get really bad, so much so I started to actually get tricked by them, because the fake enemies I would shoot and the real enemies I would ignore, believing they were fake. It's great. This game really does do the hallucinations really well. But some combat later and puzzle solving, we can engage the Lazarus protocol and we make a massive discovery.
Lazarus protocol successful. Traveler NG-3576 operational.
Essence implementation.
That's Veronica, isn't it?
It's...
A human girl attached to machinery being kept alive. That person, of course, being Veronica.
Welcome back, Pathfinder.
What have you done? Just when I thought we were actually beginning to accomplish something. Just when you were starting to be complete. You have ruined everything, you monster.
Monster? It's you who made me this. Why? Why did you make me like this?
Because she would never give up.
What?
She would try to save humanity at all costs. And so, you were to be what is left of it. Because her essence, no, her soul, would have lived on in you.
You dare to call this living? I don't even know who I am!
You are not her.
And the location? Was it all a lie?
You and your vocation. Did you ever really think you were saving any of them? I just needed something to replace the damage in her memory matrix. So I did it with a traveler's behavioral core and I filled the gaps with what I once was. I knew she would change, yes, but I still thought she'd stay herself. Oh, how wrong I was. Instead, I was left with you. The very thing I once refused to be.
Why? Why didn't you tell me who I am? Who I once was?
I thought I was giving you the most human of gifts. I imagined you would wake up without what bound you in the past. That you would be a new person in this new future, this new chapter, and you would make it your own, that you would be free. And instead, you chose to serve. But you do serve well. And so I still have a chance to start all over. And this time, I will get everything right. Fixing things.
This cutscene is the big reveal of the game, which honestly I think is handled really fucking well. So for those who are confused and don't really understand what's going on, the Warden is the Pathfinder, and he fell in love or wanted to protect Veronica because she saw him as a human, not a thing or a machine or a being that has a job to do, as an individual human with purpose. And he obviously was obsessed with her. He fell in love, he wanted to protect her as much as he could, but she either got sick or old. So the Pathfinder used the Lazarus, which was the thing that was mentioned when we awoken in our pod, the thing that probably kept the travelers from dying, to keep her alive. And he was working on transferring her essence, her mind, her soul, into a traveler. That traveler being us. But we awoke too early, and it explains why the game opens with memories. We saw someone's memories in the beginning. They were Veronica's memories, but we didn't get, and it explains the reasons why we don't really, act human. We still have that coding into us of being a traveler. The Pathfinder didn't want us using the Ascension Sequence as well, because if we did that, we would then find Veronica's essence and we would be able to ascend her, meaning she would be lost forever. So he sabotaged the terminal, taking it offline and not helping us fully on our job. He wanted to waste as much time as possible, hoping that we would give up on the vocation's will and eventually let the essences overtake us, more specifically Veronica's essence. But we didn't, which eventually led us to finding ourselves. Now you might ask, why did we attack the real body? Why did the traveler, who is Veronica, attack Veronica? Well, I believe the sight of Veronica finally, activated and fully awakened Veronica inside the traveler. We are now Veronica entirely. We are not, lost or just a robot. We are a person now, and we saw ourselves and we remember what we looked like. So we subconsciously just wanted to try and kill ourselves in a way. She's so horrified by the sight of it, she just tries to destroy it and get rid of it. Obviously, the traveler is still confused and terrified about who she is and doesn't know the truth of who she is and what she's doing and what her job is and, who she's meant to be. Is she really Veronica? Is she a traveler? Is she Angela? Who is she? She doesn't know. She's so confused. The truth isn't obscured as much as it was now though, but this also explains the targets we had and the differences we had between other travelers. The reason these targets were chosen was they were all related to Veronica in some way, be it in her personal life, professional life, whatever. They're all related to Veronica in some way and the events of the outbreak that she experienced. The way the targets were selected was almost like a natural desire for the traveler to learn more about herself subconsciously. She subconsciously selected those targets because she needed to learn as much about herself and recover as many of her memories. But now the Pathfinder also displays an emotion that we have never seen before: anger. He now says he's going to try again and cuts a rift in time, displaying his significant power, and goes back in time to reset it all. And as we follow him through, we get to see a phone call between the Pathfinder and Veronica.
Hello?
You are in danger.
It's you. But how did you...
The moment I was dreading seems to have just arrived.
What are you...
I don't know how it happened. I thought that my being in the past was holding back the awakening of my successor. But alas, I sensed a presence. One of us appeared in this timeline. He will probably want to replace me and continue the vocation. The only thing I can do is switch off to give us a little more time. They won't track me down so easily then.
Wait. No. No, absolutely not.
It's real, Veronica. Don't trust any of them. They will not hesitate. They are not me. For them, you are to be next. If fate gives us a chance, we will meet again. But for now, our paths must part.
Stop. We can still think of something.
Goodbye.
Hello? Hello?
The past meeting that Veronica and the Pathfinder had, we can see one of them. And it explains also how he was captured. He turned himself off deep underground to try delay the vocation sending another traveler to eliminate him. As we follow the Pathfinder through the portal, we enter the last section of the game, the clock tower section, which has been mentioned a few times as the main building made from the Steelworks. And here it's all about the Pathfinder and the failures he has had trying to save Veronica. And if you want to know, he was on loop 320. It increased the Lazarus protocol number to 320. When we opened it, it was 319, and then it went to 320, which tells us that he has failed a hell of a lot of times at trying to transfer Veronica successfully into a traveler, 320 times to be specific, which, man, he is not very good at his job, is he? But we get a hell of a lot more visions about Veronica's past and the past meetings she had with the traveler or the Pathfinder, but also we see this image or this vision of what seemingly the travelers look like underneath the armor. They just are a blob of flesh, potentially telling us that the travelers are the flesh itself. They are the biomass almost molded into people, which might explain, why we don't get infected, why we bleed. We are not really human, but we kind of are human at the same time. We're just kind of flesh inside a metal suit. But again, that's a theory entirely. This is a single vision that is sort of just there for a couple frames and then disappears. This could just be completely false, but it could mean that the travelers are also the biomass. They are people in a way, and they've been sent back to try fix what happened. But yeah, the Pathfinder has failed a lot, and it kind of just shows how upset he was but also we can find parts of Veronica's past as well and notes from her talking about the Pathfinder and how upset she was when he was taken away from her. I'm sure you can see a very clear theme here forming about love and the difficulty of relationships with someone outside of what is deemed, let's say, proper. It's a Romeo and Juliet story almost. But the gameplay of this section, it's a bit simple, I will be honest. It's much more about telling the story here and sort of outlining and laying out the final parts to finish this story up. But ascending the tower, we eventually reach the last save point of the game before the final boss fight. And of course, before the final boss fight, we get a message that talks about the Pathfinder saying he has a plan to save Veronica and that Veronica must trust him for the plan to fully work. And heading up a snake eater, we enter the final boss fight.
Can't you just let go?
Veronica, you can't trust him. He's dangerous. I don't know what his plan is, but you can't believe him when he says he wants to save humanity. He only cares about you. And he will hurt you.
He wouldn't.
I've seen it.
Understand.
It is better to let go than to cause yourself even more suffering.
So, You mean to tell me that I should just give up the fight? That I should simply choose death? Is that what you're saying?
No, but what he's going to do to you, it's...
Listen. He told me that you'll come for him. That the Collective would punish his disobedience.
I am not of the Collective! I am not like him!
So, who are you then?
I am... you.
You are nothing like her! You never will be.
I won't let you do to her what you did to me.
I won't. I promise. I swear.
No. You need to stop this right now.
Stay out of my way!
Didn't you renounce them?
It's true. But I never reached out for recompense. Not until now.
This is madness! Everything you do will lead exactly to what you want to avoid.
I will do what I must.
And now we enter said boss fight. So let's talk about that scene quickly, I guess. What is this game trying to say with that scene specifically? To me, it almost reads as a toxic relationship, with the Traveler being, I guess, the more logical side of Veronica and the one that doesn't have the complex human emotions that can cloud her judgment. The things that do the unexplainable things like staying with an abuser. I really like this entire game's final boss fight as well. That is almost like a domestic fight. The way that the Pathfinder speaks, it reads as like someone that fell out of love with someone but wants them to turn back into the person that they once loved. And I'm sure many of you out there have felt this in some way. I haven't, but I'm sure many of you have fallen in love with someone, you get past that honeymoon phase, and then you sort of just, you know, the years go on, your significant other might change in a way, and they might not be that same person that you once fell in love with, and you might subconsciously wish that they changed back to that person. They might have changed in a way that might be a genuine negative. They might have become, you know, very mean, very sort of, I guess, sadistic, or maybe, you know, racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever it may be, and you wish that they would just not do that anymore, and you wish you could change them back to how they once were. Or it might be a debatable negative, something that isn't, you know, 100% negative. They might be a bit lazy now, they might waste money, they might eat a bit too much, you know, things that people might say, you should change this behavior, but it isn't like something that's like, yeah, that is just bad, you know. But again, the point of a relationship is that both parties need to work on each other and challenge each other to be the best versions of themselves. And the Pathfinder, like all men, fall into the trap of believing that they need to fix everything for a woman, directly saying that the future of Veronica is not the Veronica that he loves, the one that is there, that he doesn't believe that that's the true Veronica, which it reads like an abuser, honestly. So what is the game trying to pull out? It's trying to pull out that sort of falling out of love with someone, which is, it's pulling out that direct theme of falling out of love with someone, being in a relationship and you don't have that love anymore, which is a really interesting theme for a horror game to go for, and it's very clearly inspired by Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 and its story is entirely about the theme of falling out of love with someone, more specifically the love that he once had for Mary. I won't spoil that game. I won't spoil that game and the big twist. I mean, I might do a Silent Hill 2 video soon, maybe, I don't know. But the end reveal is that James felt that he just couldn't love her anymore. His life changed so much and Mary changed in a way that he just couldn't feel the love anymore. And Cronos here is pulling at that same theme again, in a bit of a different way. The Pathfinder fell out of love because Veronica started to not trust him because Veronica didn't like the way that he was trying to deal with life and obviously wanted to go against that. We are the future Veronica and we are going against the way he is doing everything. So he doesn't love us anymore. He tries to push us away. And even after beating the Pathfinder, we have that same theme of abusive relationships lay out in front of us.
Stop! Please!
Believe me, it's better for this to end now. I told you, what he's doing here is not going to save humanity.
It's fine.
What?
Maybe not now. Maybe not in this time. But there are possibilities. There have to be.
How are you so sure?
I know. You've been through a lot. And I believe you when you say who you are. But I also believe that you used to be me. And I don't want to give up now. Not when he came back. Not when we can try again.
He is not who you remember.
He is someone who wants to help me. He is a friend.
He is poison.
Come on, I can't be the only one seeing the toxic relationship theme here.
Veronica. Please. I want to have a future. Whatever it may be.
No. You are going to suffer. That is your future.
But without it, we don't even have a flicker of hope. Please.
But after all that debating, we are given a choice that will lead into one of 3 endings now. In your first playthrough, you will only get to choose 2 options. So let's go through each one first. The first ending, you shoot the Pathfinder.
Shoot him!
No!
Ending the cycle of the toxic relationship, freeing yourself from it. And with this, we are free to take up his sickle and cut a new time rift, entering a new timeline and hopefully starting a better life. But of course, we get one last post-credit scene.
Veronica? Hey, it's all right. What's going on?
I just didn't want to be alone.
It is revealed that Veronica is sick with the disease and is now spreading that disease into the new timeline, with this now disease originating in the apartment buildings, with Edward most likely being one of the first new infected. This to me is almost saying that Veronica's trauma and problems have been brought over into this new timeline. We didn't fix anything. We kind of just cut him out and moved on. We didn't actually confront what happened in the past and actually try to change it and make best of it. Okay, what about the second one? We choose to let the Pathfinder try again. Like all relationships, if you do this, it will most likely fail. If they don't take the effort to fix themselves and try to fix the mistakes that they've been making, the same result will be achieved: misery. Yes, Veronica got sick again, and the Warden extracted her essence and probably proceeded with the Lazarus protocol once again, basically creating a time loop. Now, of course, both them endings are fairly unsatisfying, and that's because with New Game Plus, we get one more ending, which is probably the ending that the sequel will follow.
I can't let you do this.
She must be saved.
Why would you even care? I am your past, damn it! You could just go away and be free. What?
It already happened. It's happening all over again. Somehow, it always ends here.
Maybe you should be free from all the scars. And most importantly, free from me.
I won't leave you.
It's fine, Veronica. Maybe she's right. Go. Take her. There's still a chance for both of you.
Will it work?
You never give up. You'll make it work.
with us choosing to begin anew. The future Veronica realizes that they are in a forever time loop, and no matter the choice that she makes here that she has to choose between, they will always result in her returning to the same place, a place where everyone suffers. And at this point, the Pathfinder seeing this and realizing that maybe he can't save Veronica. And like what men should do, you should just listen to the lass and let her fix the problem herself. They don't need the man to fix everything, they just need some encouraging words to push them in the right direction to save themselves, which this ending basically is doing, with the future Veronica reaching out and embracing her past self, then stepping forward to save herself, not be saved by the Pathfinder, but actually take effort to try save herself and move on from him. And the post-credits scene here reveals another Traveler awaking, with the Traveler calling out to Veronica, potentially indicating that the Traveler was finally able to successfully transfer Veronica's consciousness into a Traveler body, now actually giving a flicker of hope for humanity to be saved. And that ends Cronos: The New Dawn. Honestly, a game that not only I had somewhat high expectations for, but it really did exceed them expectations, from not only the story, but its environments, themes, combat, and so much more. And while many people have been complaining about how difficult the game is and how stiff the combat is, which again, game journalists are stupid, they just don't get survival horror games. I will never forgive IGN for giving Alien Isolation a 5.9, that just says it all. But not only that, I've seen a lot of people missing the point of the game entirely, wanting it to be more like Dead Space in terms of its action. Cronos is honestly the first survival horror game, like a true survival horror game we've gotten from a AAA studio in years. Its focus on limited resources and a limited inventory space, to me, showed that it shares way more similarities to the original Resident Evil 1 with how its survival horror is done, more than Dead Space or Silent Hill or RE4, and I think that is Cronos' biggest strengths. It's a blend of Silent Hill 2's psychological narrative, Resident Evil 1's survival horror gameplay and mechanics, and of course, Dead Space for its futuristic tech theme, environmental storytelling, and upgrade system. It's a child of all three of the big survival horror series, and that makes me love it so much more. As while it does pay homage to these games in its themes and the way the game is designed, it also does forge its own identity with new and interesting ideas, from essences and time travel and the merging of enemies. Cronos, while definitely does not surpass the greats of this genre, I think it easily deserves a spot beside them, and I think it should be looked at as the potential future GOAT of survival horror, with finally the gap left by the death of Dead Space by EA being filled by a game made by a company that really does understand what makes a great horror game. A game that not only makes you scared of what's actually going on, but makes you question absolutely everything going on around you, not only in the game itself, but also in real life. At the end of the day, Cronos: The New Dawn isn't just about fighting monsters or solving puzzles, it's about people more specifically. It's about how time treats us and how it shapes us, and how easy it is to take time for granted. The game is all about cycles. Cycles of pain, cycles of obsession, and cycles of trying to hold on to something that's already gone. And yeah, that's dark as hell, but it's also kind of true to life, because time doesn't give us control. It doesn't promise us anything. What it does give us are moments. Moments where we get to actually decide who we want to be, how we treat people, and whether we keep repeating the same mistakes that we've made, or finally learn from them. And that's what stuck with me the most. The Traveler, Veronica, and even the Pathfinder, they're all trapped in their own way, clinging so hard to what they lost that they stop seeing what's in front of them. And I think we've all been there in some shape or form, holding on to something or someone so tightly that it just ends up breaking. But Cronos makes you sit in that discomfort. It makes you realize that growth, change, or even letting go of that thing is painful, but it is necessary. Because time isn't the enemy here. Time is a gift. It's the thing that lets us grow, the thing that gives us a chance to screw up, to fall, and then to try again. And that's the whole point. That every second matters, that the people in our lives right now matter. That instead of trying to fix people or force them back into who they used to be, maybe the best thing we can do is just let them be. Let them change and let them become who they are meant to be. So yeah, when the credits rolled, I wasn't sitting there thinking about plot twists or lore details. I was thinking about time, about the people I've lost, the mistakes I've made, and the fact that I still have time left to do better, to try be better. And I think that's the real question Cronos: The New Dawn leaves us with. Not whether the loop ever really ends, but what we're going to do with the time that we still have left. Because in the end, time always moves forward, and if we choose to move with it, there's still hope waiting on the other side of it. Hello lads and lasses, thank you for watching. And yeah, this video is pretty fun to make, I will be honest, with how recently this game came out. Hopefully, by the time I finish this game, it will be up on the day Dying Light the Beast comes out, so I'll be playing that. Don't know if I'll stream it, I probably won't, because I don't think my internet can really handle streaming yet, because living in the countryside of the UK is good fun. But another big announcement, we have a Discord server now. So in the description will be the link to the Discord server. I will keep pushing it to make sure that you guys see it and know about it. I know not everyone watches to the end of the video and actually listens to my ramble at the end, but if you want to, you know, chat, and obviously in the future I do plan on doing videos that are multiplayer games. More specifically, I want to do obviously the Counter-Strike video, and I want to do a video on Battlefield 6 when that comes out, because I want to see sort of the kind of content I can make around that and what kind of video I can make with that, because I think it would be something a lot more different. And obviously it's a way I can get more of the community involved in the videos that aren't, you know, voice actors or artists or whatever. But that is a plan that I have. Obviously the Discord server is very simple. I will slowly build it up a bit more, make it more modular to my needs and obviously your guys' needs in the future. So of course, any suggestions you have, be it for games that you want me to cover or server suggestions, like things you want me to do, games that you'd like me to cover with the server, I will consider it. I will not do a Valorant video though, don't even ask me. But yeah, join the Discord server if you want to join the community fully, and hopefully, you know, I can actually make the videos that I plan on making around multiplayer stuff in the future. But anyway, company members, of course, got to shout them out. Chelsea and Tyler, Marty Morris, Not Saber, Game Scavenger, Artman XP, Rat, Darren76, It's Bert, Carter Phillips, Corrego, Gillian Szynski, Juniper LP, Zaralino, Kento, Erman the Turk, Ashley, and Seagood. Thank you for your monetary support, it is greatly appreciated. Anyway, that is enough waffling from me. The next video will most likely be Dying Like the Beast, unless I decide to autistically make another video within 2 days, which I don't think I can do. But I'll probably take a small break and then obviously work on the Dying Like Beast stuff. Anyway, enough waffling from me. See you around. Crocodile.